Welcome to Hardly Initiated. It is your host, Tyshawn Jackson, here with another episode. My co-host, Ryan Ketchens.
Absolutely, man. Back after a holiday.
Back after the holiday. Big shout out to MLK Day.
Big shout out. You already know what I was doing on MLK Day. What he wanted me to do.
What's that?
He wanted me to work, man.
Grinding.
He wanted me to grind.
Absolutely.
He wanted me to grind. Listen, it was a good holiday. I'm glad we stepped away for a bit, to be honest with you. Get our minds right, get a little bit of good God right in. That's community service, right? And some time with the fam, so it was cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, we actually right here in ATL, the home of MLK, actually about 2 minutes from the memorial. It was actually popping over there at the memorial.
It really was.
On MLK Day, it was popping. Hope you guys had an amazing holiday, but way to embrace yourself for an amazing show. Because for those of you who don't know, you need to know. We had Dr. Umar Johnson in the studio this past Sunday, and boy,
oh my God,
was that not an episode?
Yo, let me tell you, Dr. Umar, man, he is really a talent.
Yeah.
Like entertaining conversation, highly engaging, polarizing, controversial to say the least. Yeah, and funny.
Yeah,
my man's is funny.
That was one of the most fun to listen to and fun to host. Even shows that we've had, but It stirred up the pot. We got a lot of emails, we got a lot of DMs, I got a lot of phone calls.
Facts.
That said, Ty, we got to talk about this and we got to address this. So you guys saw what that thumbnail said when you came in here. Yes, guys, we have found 2 interracial couples, okay, to come in here and to actually have a conversation with us today. Because a lot of people did not like some aspects of what was said in the Dr. Umar conversation. So what we decided to do was to actually reach out to people who are actually navigating this interracial lifestyle all the way to the point of interracial marriage at the highest levels. So y'all stay tuned in because we're going to have that happen. And we got some more surprises with some very special guests. So this is going to be an amazing show all the way from the top to the bottom. But if you actually was able to tune into the show on Sunday with Dr. Umar, I just want you to put a yes in the chat if you was able to be here with us.
The show is, it's going viral right now. Like, I think I've seen us on Spiritual Word. I've seen us on World Star. I've seen us on everything. So everybody is literally tuning into the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation to tune into.
I would agree. And, I got my own opinions, you know what I mean? Because and the thing is sometimes it's a little difficult to evaluate if Dr. Umar, if it was a little bit of hyperbole in there, or if it was 100% how he stands on this thing.
And we're going to figure that out. That's why we always want to bring the best context and we want to get the full range of context, on this platform, which is why we went ahead and worked very hard, y'all, to find some people that's actually living this lifestyle to really see what they had to say about what Dr. Umar said. So we're going to actually go ahead and get into it. But first, Ryan, please let the people know what we got going on right now and Hardly Initiated.
So guys, we back. And this is the thing. I've been getting so many emails about the dating cards. So the thing about the dating cards, we have not launched international shipping.
Yeah.
And we getting so many emails from South Africa, Netherlands, UK, Australia, everywhere. So guys, be patient with us because by the end of next week, it will be official and I will have gotten around to getting us set up and prepared for duty paid. That's DDP, duties paid international shipping. So guys, if you're international, you're rocking with us, you're in the Caribbean, you're in Africa, you're in the UK, you're in the UE, we got you.
We got you. Now let's actually talk about these amazing guests that we're going to be bringing here to the show today because this is going to be fun. We're actually bringing on our first couple that we're going to be bringing on. This is really exciting, okay? Because Sonia is actually married to Jason Menson, and I spoke to them, incredible people, super dope. Sonia is actually a Black woman married to Jason, who's a white brother. And it's interesting because Sonia is going to come up here and tell us about her experiences a bit and how she transitioned into that. And not just that, what's so interesting is Sonia actually, led a group, right? led a social group, an organization named Onyx that actually empowered and supported Black women who wanted to date white men. And this is a very interesting concept. Very excited to have her come in and tell us a little bit about the story here. In fact, I'll go ahead and bring her to the stage now so we can have her join us. In fact, we got both Sonya and Jason joining us in this episode. Welcome to Hardly Initiated, guys.
Evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the show.
What's up? What's up? How you guys feeling?
We're good.
We're good. Tired, but we're good.
We all got to work.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate you guys for joining us. We're going to have a very enlightening conversation. But I actually got a friend in here that's going to join us as well. Somebody that you, Sonya, recommended that we join this conversation because you two both actually were leaders in the organization that I'm describing. Okay. Her name is Tamiko, and Tamiko has been married now for 5 years to her husband, Mike, together for 11. Both of you guys were leaders in this organization where you supported, it was Black women dating white men. And you guys, I'm sure, have a ton of insight on the interracial experience. So here we go. We're actually going to go ahead and invite Tamiko to the stage. Welcome, Tamiko.
What's up, Tamiko?
What's up, beautiful?
Hey. Hi, Chase. Hi, Sonya.
What's up, boo?
Wow.
So Tamiko, I know your other half, he isn't here. As a matter of fact, I think we got a photo of him that we're gonna put up on the camera for the people that aren't able to see him. So Lionel, let's go ahead and put that photo up. And what's interesting is you guys now, you had this organization, Onyx, I kind of gave some insight on where, you guys were supporting, empowering Black women to go about dating white men. And I think originally the name of the group, even when it first started, before it rebranded to Onyx, what was it again, Sonya?
It was the group was founded by Karen Branch, and it was called Black Women for White Men. And once I became leader, and Tamiko and I and our friend Jerry, because there were 3 of us, the first thing that we did was, no, we got to change that because it's just the image and the connotation, because that's not what the group was about.
Let me ask you this here, because I want to kind of walk into the beginning, because first of all, I wanted to big y'all up so the people knows you guys have saw not just yourselves, but many women, actually have this experience where they say, yo, I really want to date white men. I want support. And you guys have supported them all the way from dating to marriage. Exactly. So you guys are one of the perfect, people to have this conversation with. And I'll start with you, Sonya, because if you can just take me back to the beginning of things, but while you're walking into it, because many of our audience might be in a place of consideration, might be already dating men, white guys, or just outside of their race altogether. But I'm curious to know, take me through this here. Were you always attracted, to white guys, or was this something, that was new to you as, you were on your journey about dating?
For me, I'd always been attracted to certain men, just very strong. There were certain men that appealed to me. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. So growing up, I had crushes on everybody. Okay.
Okay.
But the one thing that I do want to stress, and I want to knock this out before we even start this discussion, because
get it popped off.
Yeah, let's set this conversation right now. First of all, there are no perfect white men. There are just as many dirty white men as there are Black men, as Hispanic, Asian, whatever. Okay. So I want to make sure that there is not this belief that Black women, especially who date outside of their race, put white men or men of other races on a pedestal. It doesn't work like that. Okay. The bottom line is we are all about Black women making a personal choice. And what I did is I made a personal choice to expand my dating pool. And one of the reasons why is, and I also want to make this statement too. I love black men. I support black men. I love you so much. I had one. Okay. So it's never been about denigrating or ignoring or in any way making, black men feel lesser than. It's not that at all. It's about me making a choice that, what, I've dated and it seems I'm limited right here in what I'm searching for myself. And once I expanded my dating pool, guess what? It led me to this man. But that does not mean that I didn't date black dogs, white dogs, or so no good men or whatever. But before I even got to Jason, the first thing that I had to do is work on myself. So that journey, there was a lot involved. So I just wanted to make sure that people don't think that this is some sort of ode, black women ode to white men and black men. It's not like that at all. It's just making sure that black women know they have more options. You cannot be limited. Your happiness might not be found within your own race.
That's an interesting statement. I appreciate you giving us context there. In fact, can you take us back to, because I think when you first started dating, you said you pretty much had a pretty wide dating pool. You were dating already, comfortable dating outside your race, or were you dating predominantly black men, Saya?
I was predominantly dating black men. I was engaged to 3 black men. The first man that I lived with was a black man. And again, like I said, I had one, and his father is black. I was raised by black men, very strong black men. My father my father is 88, and he is still going strong. I have black brothers, black uncles, black cousins. So I've always been attracted to black men. There's never been something where I consciously said, okay, I'm not going to date black men. I'm just going to date this type of man. No, it was, okay, I'm going to date black men in addition to. Okay.
So I want to, and I think that's a fair question too, just so we can also, hear your story as well, Tamiko. Was that also your truth? Were you also, when you first started dating, did you predominantly date, black men in your earlier experiences?
Yes, I predominantly dated black men only until after my divorce. And I started venturing out. I started dating online, and I would get hit on by so many white men. And that's what kind of piqued my interest. I was saying, maybe I can, why not open up my dating pool? Why do I have to subject myself just to black men? And it was actually my mother who encouraged me to, go on a date. They're not asking for your hand in marriage on the app. They're just asking for a date. So that's how my experience got started.
Got it. And, it's interesting because when I'm thinking about dating outside your race, if you have mostly found comfortability dating within your race, I can imagine it was probably an experience or an event that made you say, you know what, this is something that it's time for me to go about making this change, because I would assume that to be a big, life decision, even psychological decision, to want to get out of your comfort zone, what I imagine it to be, and start dating outside your race. So Sonia, what was that for you? Like, what was that moment where you said, you know what, I need to start dating outside my race?
Well, growing up, I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Okay. So, excuse me, my grandparents were together 55 years before my grandmother passed away. I was raised by them primarily. So I had a good example of a strong black marriage. And it wasn't until I was older that, I learned not every marriage is perfect, but the one thing that they did is they stuck it out. And they always worked together as a team. So I had that example, but they also had friends of different races, even within Tuscaloosa. So to me, it wasn't so much a conscious decision. It was more, and it's kind of like Tamiko said, when you're in a situation, when you start dating online and you get hit on and you get a lot of messages from white men and you start scrolling through, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's, we'll see where this goes. So it was more like that. It wasn't like, okay, I woke up one day and was like, damn it, I'm going to date white men,
Well, I'm curious, Sonia, because I know you mentioned that you said it's different types of men, it's different types of black men, it's different types of white men, and so forth. But did you find that there were some commonalities with the black men that you were coming across or engaging with? And do you find that there were also commonalities with the white men that you started to begin dating?
That's a great question. And I would actually say, and this kind of goes back to working on yourself, because I would say the men that I was attracting. Okay.
Mm.
So let's start there. The men that I was attracting, they were good, you know, very, very, basically my type. I had a type. And I'm 6 feet tall. So of course I like a tall man. You know, I want to be able to wear my heels. So I had, you know, I like really tall, strong black men who really reminded me of my grandfather and my dad. So that was kind of my type. But the one thing I noticed is I was engaged 3 times, and all to black men. And I've never been one to go through this, because it's like I see women these days and they've been engaged for 25 years, you know.
Wow.
And one of the reasons that and Tamika probably remembers this because we had it happen to a lady in the group. One reason that we always encourage long-term couples to make it legal is because there was a very good friend of mine. She was with a man who he and his wife had been separated for over 30 years, but they had never officially gotten a divorce. So they moved in together, built a life together, bought a townhouse, all of this. He passed away without a will. As he was still legally married to his first wife, she got everything. The only thing that my friend got was things that she was able to prove that she owned herself. So, you know, it's not only from a legal standpoint, but just you got to have a standard. You know, at some point, you have to decide what's best for you. And the one commonality that I found in the black men that I attracted was they were great at, you know, engagement, but not taking that official next step. The commonality in the white men, because now, like I said, I was engaged to 3 black men, 3 times to black men. I've been married twice. My ex-husband is white. Now, my ex-husband is nothing like Jason. And I would just say the commonalities is that, again, based on my personal experience, is most white men are really, they're a lot more quick to actually go through with a marriage instead of, you know, having a long engagement.
Oh, so
No.
you're saying, and you know, so you're saying just white men in general
Commitment.
are more marriage minded in wanting to actually go about initiate and be a lot more serious and intentional about engaging in marriage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the majority of the ones that I dated, not all, again, because you will never hear me say all, but the ones that I attracted when I was in that dating world, they were very, you know, they let you know their intention in the end was marriage.
Wow.
Got
Wow.
it.
That's I actually made a personal observation. I actually was talking to Tyshawn about this because you know, this is on my fitness journey. At one point I was in a CrossFit community, and this was an all-white CrossFit community. I think it was like me and maybe one of the trainers. Maybe it's 200, 300 people at this gym. But what I noticed is that a lot of the young men, anywhere from about 23 to about 28, all had very serious relationships and or engagements or marriage. On the contrary, I'm at a different gym. And of course, I know all gyms is different. All communities is different. But the black gyms that I became community members those were, the culture was more so of a hookup culture. I've even found women to even state that are in the gym, they're looking to switch gyms because of this kind of thing. So I have heard that from women, and I've kind of had my own personal experience kind of seeing kind of that's how things work. But I'm curious about you, Tamiko, for this specific thing in terms of commitment and being marriage minded. Did you also experience that some of the black men or maybe more than a few were not more on the committed end versus the white men that you were dealing with?
Definitely. My experience, black men, you know, in the dating world, you get used to someone and you get used to their ways once the newness wears off, and then you try to figure out what the next phase is. And I was a single mother before I met my husband. And a lot of my dating, being single, you know, you always have to put your kids first. And when you're dealing with the relationships, is this guy going to accept my children? Am I ready for this? And, you know, I had to step back and work on myself. Like Sonia just said, I had to fall in love. I had to fall in love with me. I had to realize, that I didn't have to subject myself to just dating anyone. I was worthy of dating anybody, but I had to believe that myself. In the Black communities, when you're dark and chocolate, Black men, that's not something Black men really were into. They're more into the lighter, and we don't have to get colorism into this situation. But I had a lot of that struggle. So going to counseling was helping me not only realize that what I was dealing with within my own community, but also embrace what other people were seeing in me was the beauty. And I was receiving that from white men. I wasn't receiving that from my own community.
There we go.
Wow.
We talked about this on a previous episode, actually, with Dr. Umar. And I know y'all might have y'all might disagree with him in a lot of ways, but he actually stated that is the case. He stated that, the dark-skinned sisters, they typically do get mistreated or, looked over in many ways. And, that's just a reality that does exist. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna just address the elephant in the room, because for everybody watching this is an uncomfortable conversation. This is
Right.
even probably what I would consider, this is something I would consider taboo. And this is things that we just probably walk around and we grin and bear it, with things that all of us are probably dealing with, that all of us are thinking. And that's exactly the conversations that Harley Initiated is going to lean into.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying this to check and let the people that's listening know that we are going to have this conversation respectfully and in the most healthy manner it could be had, because there's some real things that really need to be discussed here. And I'm also saying this to empower you guys too, to let you know that I need y'all to be as honest and as real as possible, because this is really what we need. So the thing about it is, first of all, I just got my man Jason just sitting over there like a damn statue. We're gonna bring you into this conversation too, brother. So Jason, you were, obviously you're the husband.
Yep.
And what was it like for you? Like, is this an uncomfortable situation for you dating interracially, or did you always date outside your race? What's your background, in dating outside your race?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Minnesota. So, high school, all I had was white. But my best friend was Black, and I actually dated his sister.
Wow.
So for me, it started in high school. Okay. So, and you're kind of limited in rural Minnesota, so I didn't really experience multicultural till I moved to Minneapolis, and then it all changed. I've dated white women, I've dated Black women, but I can tell you honestly, from high school, my preference has always been Black.
First of all, I'm curious as hell about that. I'm very curious because, interestingly enough, I know even a lot of white women who just generally date Black guys. I know that about Spanish women. I know white guys who Black guys who generally date white women, and people just naturally develop these preferences over time. And I don't think I've ever asked anyone why. So I want to, you're going to be the first person to ask, why did Black women just generally become your preference after that experience in high school?
God, to be honest with you, exposure to MTV.
Okay. It was
and seeing, hey, there's a lot more out there. It's not white women.
that Black booty.
I mean,
Bingo. And I don't have one, but I just want
you are looking at the biggest Tina Turner crush ever.
Wow.
And Tina did it for me, and it was her legs. And
So you just were naturally physically attracted to Black women.
hands down.
Got it.
Hands down.
I mean, that's it's physical attraction. It makes perfect. I get it. Okay. So take me now into ladies, because Sonya, here's the thing. I must say this, because you say, you know what, Ty, it wasn't necessarily a big decision I made, because the reality of it is they were kind of coming at me, but I don't know if that's all the way true. Here's why I say this. you guys had an organization of ladies who were wanting to make this big jump, and they had to be empowered, they had to be supported, because I think it is really that uncomfortable getting out of your comfort zone and dating outside your race, which is even why, again, the group Onyx exists, so ladies can have that place of support. So I can imagine it was a big decision to say that this is something I want to do very intentionally. So did you seek out that organization for support when you knew that this is what you wanted to do and you needed a little bit of help, or how did that happen?
Absolutely. I strategically seeked out like-minded women because I needed support. I needed a circle of friends that understood dating interracially and just some of the ups and downs and, you know, some of the challenges that we had in our own community. So yes, I absolutely seeked out the group.
And I do want to make sure I'm on the same page too. Was it the group you were looking for support for, specifically dating white men, or just in general dating anything outside of the black?
In general, dating outside of black.
Got you.
And what kind of support is provided? Because is it not just as simple as, you know, responding back to one of the, you know, to a white DM like when you know, online dating, but it's like how do you need to be supported?
It's
hold on. Let me take this one for a sec, Tamiko, because I want to go back to his original question. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just one day where I said, okay, yeah, I'm just going to date white men. It's not like that at all. But once you decide that you're going to open up your dating options and you realize that, okay, wait a minute, so I'm having a lot more dates with white men. And you begin to have, you know, you talk to your girlfriends about it. Oh, this guy's nice, this guy's here, blah, 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 blah. And you start attending interracial events. And Tamiko will back me up on this. When you join, because the one thing I did do is we both joined Meetup, and we look for interracial dating. You can just type it in and it gives you a list of groups. So I know I joined several of those groups that were appealing to me. When I attended events with those groups, even though they say it's interracial dating, the bottom line is the black men were there for the white women. Wow. The white men who were there, who wanted to date, you know, wanted to talk to the black women, were very intimidated by the black men. So they basically talked to the white women or themselves, except for the few who ventured out and actually, you know, would talk. So basically you would have everyone else and then the black women over here on the side. And after, you know, having this happen over and over and over again, where it just seems like every interracial dating group was really geared towards the black man, white woman interracial demographic. Yep. I said, okay, well, let's check this out. Black woman, white man, interracial dating. One group popped up, and that was Karen's group. So again, I wasn't too crazy about the name, but like I said, the four, I didn't like the connotation or the image that it presented. That was
black women for white men. It's
right.
Very clear. It's very clear.
Yeah, that one word right there was not great, but again, once I joined, and it was great to see and to meet other black women, such as Tamiko, who has become literally a sister and my very, very best friend. You know, to meet and support and get that support from black women. Not so much meeting the white men. Right. That's gonna happen.
Let me tell you, ladies, I am completely blown away. I'm completely blown away by this, just in terms of being in a place where you need this help. And I know the internet, I know everything is on the internet. You can find solutions for every single thing, but this particular one, it's just mind blowing. So I'm very curious to ask you, ladies, just what is your general thought about the general population of black women? What percentage, if you had to throw a percentage out there, how many of these women do you think are on the absolute edge of being like, hey, I am done dating black men. I am absolutely open to trying something completely different?
Probably about 60% of black women. I hear it all the time, and that number could be higher.
I go higher.
I hear it all the time.
Higher. It's more, to me, it's more like 85%. And it's also coming from black men too.
Yeah.
You know, I've had
so the men are saying the same.
have reached out and said, okay, you know, Zion, where would I start if I wanted to start dating outside of my race or wanted to
Let's
start
drop
dating
that
white
I
poll.
am absolutely going to drop a poll on this.
So we're gonna drop a poll in the chat to really get some feedback on this. We're gonna do this ladies only because I kind of want to see both.
Well, we
I
can
want to
do
see both.
We
Yeah,
can
let's do both because I don't even want to skew the information. Let's do ladies only on the first one. Fellas, we're gonna have another poll coming up for you next. In fact, what I want to ask is this here too, because you guys not only joined this organization to get some support and get some help, but eventually became leaders in this in this group to now support other women. What were some of the main reasons that you found that women chose to join this group to now start dating outside of their race?
Support within a community, a sisterhood to help them navigate through this transition. And
No.
reason. He's asking for the reasons why they.
I'm talking about what was the actual cause or motivator to now have them date outside of their race intentionally. Because now at this point, I imagine if you're taking on to join that group, you're pretty much saying, I'm now more so looking to date less black men, if not completely stop dating black men altogether and now start dating outside. What was the reason for that?
I think some of the stories we got from the women were just bad experiences in relationships with black guys.
And I want to make a correction to what you just said, Tashawn, because at least in my experience, there was no black woman who joined and said, I'm done dating black men.
Yeah, that's true.
We want to date white men. That was not the case.
No.
Okay.
Black women who joined were more, again, I want to expand my dating pool. And one thing about Onyx, it presented the opportunity. We had events for like-minded people to get together and build friendships, relationships. We also focused on Black women's self-empowerment because one thing that people do not want to talk about, I can go on Facebook or social media right now. And one thing that I see nothing but, and this is, again, I will never use the word all because that is not the case. And that is actually, denigrating everyone by grouping everyone together and saying the behavior of a few equals what all. That's not the case. But I'm seeing too many of my Black male friends, and these are good men, posting the most ignorant hatred and stereotypical insults towards Black women. And it almost comes from a place like you want to ask them, like, dude, who hurt you? Like, really? Because on one day, on Monday, you're talking about how Black women are the foundation and the queens and everything else. You're building us up. On Tuesday through Thursday, every post is denigrating and stereotyping. All of a sudden, single mothers, are this and they're emasculating. And it's all this Kevin Samuels misogyny BS. So when you see all of that and you're like, hold up, bro, on top of being in a relationship and realizing, that he's not only dating you, but 12 other women or whatever, you're kind of like, all right, let me just see what else is out there because I'm not attracting the quality Black man that I want to attract.
Wow.
Interesting. In fact, what I want to do, because Ryan, we just dropped this poll. I actually want to, because again, this conversation was inspired by a conversation we had with Dr. Umar Johnson from everybody that just came in here. So we're actually going to go ahead and I actually want to play a clip from that video to get some context. But Ryan,
before we play the clip, because I do want to get some general perspective from each of our guests, and I want to make sure you guys all at least listen to portions of Dr. Umar's interview on this particular topic, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to get some general feedback from you guys, but let me read this poll real quick. Guys, poll just dropped, and this is the thing. I feel like if we would have dropped this poll on Sunday when Dr. Umar was here, the voting would be completely different. Now I really feel like people are so moved because people are on the edge, so they're so moved by what is the most recent thing or philosophy that I'm hearing. So I do think that plays into it. So we'll see, because I think this is a poll that's worthy of running on a couple episodes.
Okay, but
the poll is, are you seriously interested in dating outside your race? So we got over 330 votes on this thing, guys. I think it's we need to get to 1,000 votes on this because I gotta know the answer on this.
Where we at right now?
Right now it's split. I don't want to give it up right now. It's split. 400 votes.
Is this the ladies on? Is this everybody?
No, this is everybody.
Okay.
Let me see how many people got in the chat. We got 1,600 people in the live chat right now. So we need to get 1,000 answers to this poll. The poll is just a simple yes or no. Are you seriously interested in dating outside your race?
And when it comes to dating outside your race, again, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this. In fact, this conversation was inspired by an episode we had on Sunday with Dr. Umar Johnson, which he pretty much gave a strong warning specifically to Black women looking to date outside their race. And I'm gonna go ahead and play that so we all can go ahead and hear it now.
I want my sisters to be careful. And the reason I want my sisters to be careful, being who I am, I get a lot of stories from a lot of Black women. I've had Black women tell me they were engaged or married to white men for years, even with children, only for him to turn around and call her the N-word, call her a Black bitch, tell her she'll never be as good as a white woman. You understand? Because remember, all white people have that in them. Just because they're having sex with you, I don't know where we get this idea that if a white person beds you, that means they're somehow different from any other white person. Didn't Thomas Jefferson bed half the plantation? Didn't George Washington bed half the plantation? So where do we get this idea that if a white person is sexing you, they're somehow not racist? They just as racist. I had one sister send me an email. She said, Dr. Umar, my white boyfriend calls me the N-word when we're having sex.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
In fact, she called in on one of my lives and discussed it. Yeah. He calls her the N-word when they're having sex. And she wanted me to know if I felt that was acceptable. I can't even believe she could. Yes. Yes. Wow. Because you got to remember, in white culture, the men believe you never really had sex unless you've been with a jungle woman, i.e. our sisters. So all white men want to access the Black vagina because it's the best vagina in existence, but they only accessing it, as a fetish.
Strong words again from Dr. Umar. And
wow.
Just generally.
Oh, I'm looking at the body language from our guests. They got some hand on their chest.
I'm
they got something to say
sure.
about this, right?
I'm sure.
I need to get
As ladies who are married, Black women in particular, married to white men, what's your first thoughts when you hear that video?
Ooh.
Zamiko, you want me to take this one? Because I'm gonna take it as well.
Yeah, please take it.
Or do you want to get yours out? You want to get your piece out first?
No, go ahead.
Sure.
Take it.
Okay. Bruh. And I say this with all due respect, because honestly, I've never heard of that man until you guys contacted us about coming on this show. Because one thing I do is we tune out bullshit. And that was some utter and complete bullshit. What gets me, the hypocrisy of Black men like him. You want to sit here and you want to talk about, well, let me back up. First, let me acknowledge he is correct. Those incidents do happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. We are not saying that those don't happen. Nobody is saying that at all. But that is not the general. What happens with one Black woman and the woman and the white man that she chose to date and the behavior that she chose to accept and deal with is not indicative of the entire Black women / white man interracial demographic. So let's get that out. Let's get that out straight. But you want to sit here and talk about what the white man could one day call his Black spouse / girlfriend, significant other. But I ain't heard you say shit about the fact that Black men say the same exact thing about us every damn day. Okay? You don't say nothing about that. Now, you speak as if you have some authority over our personal happiness, our personal choices, what we choose to do. And I told you, Tashawn, when we first talked about this, anybody that can tell me how who I marry and who is in my bed affects their personal daily life in any way, okay, let's talk. Until then, sit your ass down and mind your own business. Worry about who in your bed. Because my relationship does not affect you. And to sit here and use the whole Black community permission / withholding, or you're no longer a Black woman, validation. You ain't the grand poobah of the Black community. Okay, that's your personal opinion. You and the people that agree with you. But the one thing that what I always get when you listen to what he says, it's about control and authority. You are not a valid Black woman unless you do, unless you meet, unless you surrender your personal happiness and your personal self-choice to the authority of the Black community. If you do not, then the Black community can or withhold their support. Bruh, no. And see, with Black women, if you don't get nothing else from this entire discussion, please understand this. Only you make the choice on what makes you happy. Do not let any man, I don't care what color he is, do not let any organization, do not let anyone else tell you what is your standard for your own personal happiness. That is completely up to you. If you want to date a Black man, marry a Black man, then goddamn you do it, sweetie. If you want to date outside your race, do it. But never let anyone tell you that your value lies within the validation of a small group of misogynistic Black men who decide whether you are worthy of being a Black woman or not. It does not work that way. And that's the first thing that we should stop giving in to that whole I must please in order to receive.
I want to hear Tamika on this one.
Absolutely.
Tamika, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I didn't like his statement because he generalized it. And it's not each and everyone's individual experience. And yes, do you have white guys that have fetishes for Black women? Absolutely. Do you have other ethnicities that have fetishes for different other ethnicities? Absolutely. It's going to exist within our own community and with any other ethnicity. But he made a blanket statement about white men, and just that the only reason why they are in love with Black women is because they all have a fetish for Black women. No, I highly disagree with that. My relationships, I did sit down even with my current husband. I sat down with him and just, had a candid conversation that, because I'm his first interracial relationship. He's never dated a Black woman before. And he even told me his reason for dating a Black woman, because he wanted to, open up his dating pool. He wanted more options. He just didn't want to subject himself to just dating white women. He started, noticing more and more Black women. He was attracted to Black women. He was attracted to the confidence that we give, that he said he didn't see in white women. So there were numerous of things that pulled him towards, wanting to open up his dating pool. So that's how he started dating outside of his race. But for Dr. Umar to actually generalize these white men and make it seem like we are their fetish, it's disgusting to me to even hear that, because I do know it exists, but no, it didn't exist in my experience.
Okay.
And Jason, are you pretty much on the same page with these ladies about that? What you hear from Dr. Umar, or are you thinking different?
I'm just, the one thing that sticks out in my mind is his complete detest for people like me. And I hate the fact that he used the word all white people. So apparently he's never been up to the Midwest. It's such a blanket statement, and it's actually kind of sad. Me personally, I even said this to Sonia while we were getting ready. I'm like, can you honestly think I would ever call you the N-word? And what was your response? Hell no. No.
It's about the character of the person. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't white men who don't. We're not invalidating what he's saying, but to sit there and make it a blanket statement as if this is in every you know, this happens in every interracial relationship. It's like, nah, bro, you apparently don't know. You've been talking to the people who made the wrong choices.
I mean, I'll give you a good example. And this happened. I mean, I lived in Atlanta for close to 22 years. In every place I work, and it's multiracial. And the one thing I always got is I get to the company and everyone looks at this 6'5" Scandinavian, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they put up that natural guard. Or they try to throw out the race card. But the minute they come in my office and see a picture of my wife, their whole demeanor change. Their whole demeanor change and treated differently. I'm very easygoing. I can make friends with anyone. Sonia's class, you know, from Lakeshore, I am an honorary Lakeshore alumni. And she has the coolest classmates in the world. That's just who I am, though.
Yeah. And he's very aware of his white privilege, and trust me, I take advantage of it every day.
Let me ask this here. I want to ask this here because I think this is a very important question, because I think, you know, you guys, you know, making that big decision, and every other lady that joined Onyx to be able to get supported, to get help in dating white men or just outside of their race in general, I think is because this question here, I think it's connected to this question I want to ask right here, because, and we could start here with you, Tamiko. If you feel like you never made the decision to date white men, do you feel like you would have been happily married as you are today?
No. I'd have still been single, waiting on a black man.
So this is even, Tamiko, even if you went back to the lab, you mixed some things up, you made some improvements, you made some adjustments, you became a better person, even if you put in all the work, the answer is still, if you didn't start dating out your race, you would be single right now.
Yeah, I still would be single. Brothers is just not into the chocolate. I'm being honest.
Wow. First of all, I gotta get that next. Let's close this poll out, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's close this poll out right here, because I want to see where we at with this one.
Over 2,000 people in the chat right now. Let me take this poll. It's got over 2,000 people in the chat. So clearly the conversation is engaging and is much needed. The poll, it's gotta wait. It's gotta tally up real quick.
Okay, cool. So we got the poll coming in.
Yeah, the poll at 15 minutes, over 145 votes, guys. Are you seriously, go ahead and put your last votes in right now before I close this thing. Are you seriously interested in dating outside of your race? 850 votes. 59% of people say no. But that's 41% of people that say yeah. That's a large percent.
That is a lot
of people.
That is a lot of people.
That's huge.
That is a lot of people in here saying that they will. And in fact, now
seriously interested, by the way.
Yeah.
So this is not just for fun. This is like, yo, I'm seriously considering taking this leap of faith.
Right. We just said we wanted to put another poll out. What was that second poll we just talked about putting out?
Just the one about chocolate.
Chocolate.
Do brothers
like the chocolate sisters? Because I love, first of all, I love a beautiful chocolate sister. But if I'm gonna sit here, I'm being silly in the back. But if I'm gonna sit here and act like I know that the chocolate sisters don't get looked over in our mainstream culture, and probably in other cultures and with ours, I can't even do that, because I know a lot of chocolate sisters and we had some real conversations and they tell me what's going on. And I got homies and I know what my homies say in private. So I know what the situation is. So, but I just want to get a general idea, and I want this men's only.
I'm gonna put men's
Let's
only.
get this men's only. Ladies, don't come in here getting all emotional in my poll, because I want to get a good feel. I want to get a good feel of what's going on in here. So let's
somebody got to help me spell. How
here.
you spell chocolate? Chalk.
Oh shit, Ryan.
CHOCOLATE.
CHOCOLATE. CHOCO. Man, now you're embarrassing me on damn.
Chocolate lobster.
You're gonna go check out
You're
there.
embarrassing me. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
No, we
Oh,
gotta-
not the want. Damn, bro.
Look. Men only. Do brothers like the chocolate sisters?
And I want to ask you this too, by the way, while that poll is going out, fresh poll just came out, guys. I want to get your answer there. Sonya, if you didn't start dating outside your race, do you feel like you would be married today?
Honestly, probably not. Because even when I met Jason, I was happily single because I had taken that time to work on myself and to heal. I needed to really, after my last relationship, and it was so bad, like I literally lost myself in that relationship. So I took some time out. I took 2 years and I worked on Sonya. What is it about me that keeps attracting a certain type of man? What do I need to do to address the issues within myself? So I intentionally did not date. And the other thing that I would tell any woman, and this is whether black, white, I don't care what your race is, if you are serious about attracting what the desires of your heart, it all starts from addressing yourself and spending that time with yourself. See, a lot of folks, and this is where the math don't be mathing, okay? Whenever we hear people say, I'm looking for my other half, okay? Or I'm looking for my better half, or I'm looking for that person to complete me. Okay. 1 and 1 equals 2, right? 0.5 and 0.5 equals what? 1. Why the hell are you looking for half a person? It's 2 people in a couple, okay? 2 individual, complete, whole people. So in order for you to attract that complete and whole person, you must be complete and whole yourself. How can you tell somebody that asks you, like, what do you love? What do you like? What do you like to do? If you don't know yourself, we always encourage women, date yourself, spend time with yourself, handle and address those issues that you know that are holding you back. Because guess what? That'll lead to something that you probably thought, okay, I thought I had dealt with that. And that could be the one thing blocking you. But our basis in Onyx, again, was not just to focus fully on, okay, black women, here, date white men. It was an opportunity to meet and date white men and other men outside of black men, so you can date, but more a support and sisterhood, because we understood no matter what man that you're attracted to, no matter what man you end up with, it's all, if you want a good relationship and a good foundation, it starts within yourself. And there are so many hurt and broken black women who are they're settling. When you hear men basically say, okay, I'd rather you not date a black man or date outside your race. I'd rather have you single and alone and unhappy, or sharing a black man than to see your own personal happiness. And if you do seek out your own personal happiness, all of a sudden, you're not this enough. You're not that enough. You're not this. And I am so tired of seeing black women sacrificing their personal happiness on the altar of the black community.
Hold on. Now Sonya, I do want to ask this too, because I do want to get some context, because I get that side of it. I want to give the people some of the insights into it though, because obviously you are an advocate for dating outside your race. You are 100%,
Date
pushing.
who you want.
Date who you want. Don't box yourself in. I get it. Now, if you can paint for me some of the challenges that might come with that either you, yourself, or some ladies that because I think y'all said y'all saw 36 black women get married, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they were not all to white men either. That's the other thing too. We have several members who ended up marrying black men.
Wow.
So let's talk about
it. We got to get the stereotype out of a lot of people's head, or the picture that's being painted by men like Dr. Umar, and really tell you guys what's really going on. And again, the core of it is black women understanding that your personal happiness does matter. You do not have to sacrifice it in order to get approval from anyone.
Now, okay, no, I got you there, Sonya. What I want to go into, I want to step into the interracial though, because obviously you gave them the one side that they should go into it. Now, give us some of the things that we could potentially expect that we might have to prepare ourselves for. Because what are some of the challenges that might inherently come with that?
And I think it's a good idea to get the super chats going too, because
yes,
the thing is, because you guys are y'all making it really pretty right now. But I'm just thinking about all of the issues that would come if I decided today to marry a white woman.
Oh my God.
So we got to break it down. That's number one.
And I want everybody to support the channel by sending in these super chats, because this is the thing. This is such a dense conversation. There is no way me and Tyshawn can personally catch every single angle and every single best question. So guys, please send your questions, because I really don't want to miss nothing on here.
Absolutely.
And I feel you guys in, because this is the thing. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a black man. I grew up everything black, all black, everything, all black high school, all black elementary, middle school, all black neighborhood.
Likewise.
So I know for a fact that I have many of prejudices within me. And I consider myself of extreme high character. But I know when push comes to shove and certain things happen, I'm real skeptical.
You racist.
I'm racist. I really feel like that. Well, because the thing is, we all have these perceptions. I mean,
I get what you're saying. We all have the biases built in. I get
exactly.
And we can go back to that, like, to answer your question. Yeah, you've got the whole shunning from family and friends. Okay, you've got the fact that you can marry into a racist or bigoted or prejudiced family, because there's always going to be somebody. You've got
no. I don't even want to hear random. Can you give me some of the experiences you personally might have had in some of the challenges you personally took on? If you can,
let me finish. I got you, boo. That's where we was going.
Okay.
My ex-husband, I'll never forget this day. Now, my ex-husband is from Alabama also. He's an Auburn fan. And see, that's where I really messed up, because Alabama fan married an Auburn fan, and it was during the Shula years when we did not win one Iron Bowl. Oh my God, no, that did not work out. But the bottom line is, his family, he had family members that were deeply racist. And I remember on the day that JFK Jr., they were, the day that he died, we were laying in bed watching TV, and he had an aunt in Mississippi. I call it Mississippi. I'm sorry, I hate it. But he had an aunt in Mississippi who called and basically was like, oh, I heard you were engaged, and I heard you're marrying a black woman. He said, yeah. And she said, well, how dark is she? Is she midnight black or paper bag black? He was like, okay. So he said, I tell you what, I'm going to send you a picture. He photoshopped and mailed her a picture of him in buckwheat right next to each other. When his grandfather died, we drove to Mississippi to attend the funeral. We were chased off the road twice by racists in red trucks. One of red truck. This is why I cannot stand that state. If not for my family who lives in Jackson, you would never ever. I detest that state. We were called. Well, I was called the N-word when we stopped for gas. We were denied service at a gas station or at a restaurant. Basically, when he walked in, everything was fine. But as soon as I walked in, basically the hostess telling him, you might just want to get this to go. We, one night on our way home, it was another New Year's. I was driving because I'm not a drinker. I'm not much of a drinker. He was drunk, so I was driving. We got pulled over by Sandy Springs police. When they pulled us over, now I knew I hadn't been drinking. It's a curve, so I hadn't broken any laws. Pulled over. He actually addressed Claude. He asked me for my license and registration, which I already had ready. But he's going, wait, are you in danger, sir? Are you okay? Basically, is this black woman gotten you drunk and is trying to hijack your car or whatever. So you do deal with a heightened racism, bigoted, prejudice mindset, but that comes from black and white people. And the one thing that with being a black woman, especially when it's a black woman / white man IR demographic, black men are either your biggest supporters or the biggest detractors. But it's funny, the ones who are the biggest detractors are the ones who, how do I put this? If your bum ass can't take care of yourself, and you talk about a beautiful black woman being with a white man being such a waste, but you sitting on the corner with a bucket and you bumming me for a cigarette, let's just say that, and you think that I should care about your opinion of my marriage and what makes me happy? No, nah, bro. So again, you're going to deal with the bigotry, the prejudice, the insults, the personal attacks. All of that comes with it. But if you are solid and secure within yourself and within your relationship, none of that matters, because bottom line, none of these people pay my bills. None of these people you have nothing to do with my daily upkeep. You have no authority over my life. My life does not affect your life in any way, and vice versa. So why the blank, dude? Why do you care?
You're going to get it
I want to ask Jason here as well, because you know, it's interesting. I've never thought from a perspective of a white brother how an interracial relationship might affect you on your end of the spectrum. But what are some of the personal challenges that you had when going into this interracial relationship? And all, you know, and even ones that some in the past that might have been tough as well, because you did say that you have dated multiple black women. So what are some of the challenges that you saw yourself facing?
Well, I mean, I'll say this first. I mean, you get it from both sides. You get it from the white community, you get it from the black community. You're not immune to either side. And I would dare say that there's racists on both sides. You know, I'm in the middle. But trivial things, you know, the stuff I don't really care about. Sonia and I could be at the grocery store. She's right behind me and she has a couple of items in her hand. Checkout lady checks us out. She stops after mine. And I have to say, no, we're together. And they'll give me that quizzical look. And then I'll get that fake smile and they'll scan our groceries. The other thing, I do not let Sonia drive me anywhere. I drive. I drive because the few times that she does drive, because I'm tired, the looks we get from other cars, it's just not comfortable. You know, it's just trivial things like that. And it's trivial enough to where I don't care. I don't care what people think. You know, in the end, it's Sonia and my happiness. That's it. And we try to make good examples, and we will go out of our way to make someone, if they feel uncomfortable, feel really uncomfortable. So, I mean, that's it. I'll be honest with you. I have more good experience than bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
No,
I've
no,
met all of her friends are cool. You know, they're like brothers to me. So
okay.
I can't complain.
What I want to do here, I want to do this because I'm gonna be honest. This is such an interesting conversation, man. This is I budgeted an hour for this joint, but when I tell you,
We got to unfold this
thing, we really could have ran a whole episode on just this topic because it's that dense. But I want to close it out here with this one because we got something very special coming up for the people. Here it's gonna be a great episode, but I can't let Tamiko go without hearing your perspective on this, because do you feel personally that you had some unique challenges, because you're 5 years in now in marriage, interracially at this point, were your experiences any different from, you know, some of the ones that they fired off, or is it pretty much aligned with some of the same things you struggle with?
It's pretty much in line with what Sonia and Jason mentioned. You get it from both sides. I mean, you get the brothers that look at you and feel like you're a disappointment to the community. Sometimes you get the sisters that look at you and says, oh, I'm curious. Sometimes I'm still curious about what the sisters are looking. Either they're upset or they're curious, or I'm not sure, what was your story, your journey? How did you end up this way? So it's really all over the place for me with the sisters, but the brothers, they give straight hate. And yeah, from the white community, my husband gets it as well. And then sometimes you do get the brothers that look at my husband and go, what are you doing with her? Like we get it both. So we do, I'm thankful we have a very strong communication. We try to talk about these things and process them along the way as they're happening, just so it won't innately, ruin our relationship or tear us apart just because, I don't feel like I'm living. Sometimes, like Sonia said, you feel like you live in your relationship for your community, or you feel like you have to date for your community. But when does it become just about me? It's just about me and my happiness, no one else, and my children, no one else. So yes, we've had some struggles, but that, ups and downs come with any relationships, but you do have a little bit more struggles when you do have an interracial relationship. I get it. You talk about black and white. Yes, so my husband and I talk about it all the time. Yes, we're very heavy into politics, so it comes up. But at the end of the day, we have more good than we have bad.
Now, I want to ask you guys this, because I know sometimes we have philosophies that are most relevant to how we decide we want to live life. But then we have kids and we just have other situations where maybe the philosophy may change a bit. So let me ask you ladies this. When you see a man, okay, he appears, as far as you know, to be an eligible bachelor, okay, or at some point was an eligible bachelor, and he's with a white woman and he's committed to this white woman. Do you guys feel any type of way about that? Or is it the same where, hey, you should be able to find love however you get to it?
I used to. I mean, it's been going on in our community for a long time. Brothers have been by their race for a long time. It's nothing new. It's just when Black women started doing it, it became such a big issue. But brothers been doing it from NBAs, top executive CEOs. It doesn't matter. You guys get a pass. But when a sister did it, all hell broke loose.
Yes. But what are you guys' specific opinions about that? Black men committing to white women.
If you like it, I love it. I have no opinion at all. If you're with that person, that's your business. They make you happy, live your life. It does not affect me at all.
Does not affect me at all as well.
You've always felt that
same
way?
opinion I have if I see two black folks together or two whatever together. Honey, if you happy, go right ahead.
I'll be honest.
Unhappy, then
that's
hey.
hard for me to believe. That's hard for me to believe.
Let me ask you, has it always been that way, or did your opinion change as you started to open up, your mind to dating outside your race?
For me,
my opinion changed after I started dating outside my race. Before, I did have a little bias towards it, because it's like, hey, it's beautiful Black women here. Why don't our own men want us? So it was, I'm not going to lie and say some of that lied within me. It did. After I worked on myself and realized, hey, the dating pool doesn't have to be subjected to just, one race. So now, if she's for you, I'm all for it.
And the only reason I asked that is because I actually was talking, this was some time back, was talking to one of our niches. And she is actually Philippine, and she's married to a Black man, loves her man, loves her family. And, of course, she got the business from both sides, about her committing long-term to a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
And she put up with all of it. And, she, in the situation she's extremely happy with. Now, the thing is, when I was speaking to her, she has kids, and I was talking to her about her kids. And although she is Filipino, married to a Black man, she encourages her children to date Black men and women. And I just thought that was just very interesting. How she adopted one philosophy for her situation, and then could have a different philosophy, for the kids.
Wait, so you're saying she wants her kids to date
their race?
Black. Correct. Got it. So she
did the opposite.
Interesting. That is interesting.
You
guys don't have
I wanted to go back to your original question because Tamiko got to answer, but I want to give my input on that as far as what was it, the challenges or when you see a white man with a black, or excuse me, a black man with a white woman,
Right.
only ones that I ever had an issue with are those who denigrate a black woman in order to celebrate the white woman they're with. Now, those are the only ones that I ever have a problem with. Because I'm true to my word when I say, honey, if you like it, I love it. That's not my business. But if you're sitting there and you're saying how beautiful and awesome your white woman is, but then at the same time denigrating the black woman, or vice versa, no matter what IR demographic it is, if you are exalting one race while denigrating the other, no.
No, listen, I get it. I get it. And let me tell y'all, this is such a heavy conversation that I'm already in my mind plotting out how we're gonna do a part 2. But what I can do is I appreciate y'all for coming up on here, and sharing with us, having this very uncomfortable conversation in 2024.
This is huge
because
2,200 people in the chat. Like,
a lot of people got opinions about this conversation. This is a conversation a lot of people have experiences with, are thinking about. Nobody's talking about it. And that's why the chat is exploding how it is.
Wasn't ready. Were we ready for this?
I think we were. And the one thing that Jason, I wanted Jason to mention, but I guess we'll have to bring this up on part 2 because Mike can talk about it too, are the people who get exposed as racists and bigots who don't know that they're married to black women, and the conversations that he overhears being in corporate America.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits.
That's one of the benefits, because you get to find out, and the stories that we could tell you, not only from our personal experiences,
who's real and
but
who's not.
You really get to see. Again, we use his white privilege to our advantage.
Well, let me tell you guys, I've actually really enjoyed this conversation. I'm personally, even in my personal life, I like the hard conversations. Mm-hmm. So this one here was definitely my cup of tea. I appreciate y'all for coming up on here. Sure. Thank you so much, both to Tamiko and Sonia and Jason, both of you guys. Much love to you guys. You guys have a blessed day, okay?
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Man, they really came and shared.
Let's close that poll out, by the way. We still got an active poll out about that conversation.
We got a bunch of things going. So, guys, we got the poll that I'm getting ready to close, but we also got some super chats.
We're going to read those.
Some of these super chats are relevant to their specific situation. So we didn't quite, make enough room in there for them chats. So we gotta
let's read them anyway, because what I want to do here, let's just still show the people super chat love. Was it what is it? Is it 10 and over today? We reading?
Always.
Got
yes.
it. Okay.
And I'm gonna close out this poll, guys. Poll's up for 13 minutes, 333 votes, or 415 votes. Men only. Good. We got 400 good men in the chat right now.
What they saying?
Excellent.
What they saying?
450 votes. Men only. Do brothers like the Chocolate Sisters? A resounding 72% say yes.
I like that.
The brothers.
I like that.
First off, let me tell you, who said no?
That's kind of wild.
Who said no?
That's
a little scary.
Nah,
that's a little scary.
That is wild, man. That's absolutely wild.
Listen, fellas, you need some of that chocolate in your life.
Yo,
that's good for you.
Let's get some of the super chats going, because I want to get y'all. I want y'all. Listen, much love to my super chatters out here. We love the super chats. We appreciate them. You give us a super chat 10 and up, we're gonna read it in the show. I just try not to break flow the conversation too much, but understand, stay tuned in. Not only are we about to start bringing some of our initiates up, okay, for our hotline bling.
Shout out to Dr. J, to Umar. All are not the same. Why can't it be people are now choosing people who they are compatible with, or they are moving towards what God originally intended? I would have expected more from you. Okay. You know what? Somebody got to right. Exactly.
Let's get to the
Somebody got to pre-read these chats.
Yeah.
Shout out to Simply Nzinga, man. Nzinga has to be responsible for at least 10% of every member that joins the Initiative family, because she's always dropping bottles in here. And shout out to every other new member in here. Shout out to Joshua Stevenson, says the primary issue is the kind of black men black women want. They all want these brothers who are the worst kind of men and project the bad qualities of these men until the majority of black men. I mean, this is a thing relevant to the conversation, right? You did have Sonya that said she was in 3 failed engagements with black men.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Joshua, he might got some ammo there. And then we got one more. If the black socioeconomic structure were reversed, would your decision to date white men be the same?
Did it play a part in your choice subconsciously? Hopefully they still here in the chat. I want them to go ahead and answer that. And listen, y'all, we be having to stay on. The conversations get so deep. It's hard to break flow. I'm going to continue to read you guys' conversations. In fact, what I want to do is bring you guys up real quick because I just want to hear a quick idea of your take. I want somebody that's actually open to dating outside of their race. If you open to it, I want you to come up here on initiation hotline and come up here and talk about why you might be open to it. Because I think we said it was about how many people was it?
In terms of
70%, like the percentage of people in it, 60% of people said no, but 40% said they open to it.
40% of, I think it was 41%, 41 some odd percent said they are absolutely interested, seriously interested in dating outside their race.
So can we get that link drop? So we can go ahead and get people in here so they can join the initiation hotline. And I got some good news for you guys because today we got two very special guests coming in here to address some other parts of the Dr. Umar Johnson conversation here. So we got a very special part 2 of this conversation happening. So y'all stay put.
Honestly, Dr. Umar went so crazy on an episode. We can have a whole nother 4-hour episode just about the stuff that he covered on that show.
No, it was a very dense episode, guys. So for everybody that didn't see it, I want you to go ahead and see it. And I want the initiates to come up on here and I want them to share with us, because when you think about dating outside your race, especially for most of us, just think about us as people. We're very tribal as people. Most people are dating within their race. It's almost it's almost just a natural thing to do, to date within your race. So somebody that's looking to date outside of their race in many ways might be a person that maybe experienced some trauma, might not be getting their needs met, might just not feel like what they want is within their community. And that's really some deep stuff to consider. And this conversation is a popular conversation because that's a real thing that many Black men and women are communicating, that is just not many, quality, quote unquote, men and women in the space. And this is a realistic place that we have gotten to. And you see, the lady said a whole organization was created, right? Onyx rebranded from Black women dating Black white men. So, this is something that we're all facing. And we got the is it in there now?
What's that?
We dropped it?
Yeah, we actually got somebody in here, GZ.
All right.
He just logged out.
So come on. Y'all come on in here now. It has dropped. The link for the initiation hotline is in the chat. So you guys go ahead and click the link. I just want to hear a couple.
We got anonymous. But I don't want to take anonymous.
No. Bring them up. I like the anonymous. Let's bring somebody up anonymously right here. What's up, anonymous caller? Can you hear us? You got to mute you got to unmute your speaker.
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh man.
You better come with it, anonymous. What's up?
How are you doing? You guys always come on and I'm putting my children to bed, so I have to stay anonymous.
Okay.
This
is my Caribbean beauty.
First of all, listen, this is the last time I'm gonna let you call in anonymous. Okay.
You're always on when I'm putting my kids to bed.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Let's go ahead and get to these callers. I want to take care of everybody. So go ahead and ask your question, sweetheart.
I actually am just starting to date outside my race.
Wait, say it again now. I can't really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just starting to date outside my race.
You're just starting to date outside your race.
And how is that going for you?
It's going well. The interaction has been vastly different, I must say, between just how the Black men initially interact and how the white men initially interact. There's a level of respect with the white men. With the Black men, there's a level of familiarity. So they immediately going to start honey babying and, what you doing and can I come over? Initially, I mean, after just 2 or 3 messages, as opposed to the white men who have taken the time to start respectfully and want to actually get to know me. So that's
Insane. So you
in
saying that the black
being in
men
the.
are
Mhm,
they're advancing, they getting a little bit too
mhm,
personal before they actually get to know you versus the white man.
mhm,
Pretty much
mhm.
saying they trying to
Right
smash.
away.
Let me.
Okay, go ahead.
What caused you though? Like, what was the point where you say, "Yo, I'm about to start dating white men"? Because you it just happened. What caused you to start doing it?
Well, I gave you a little bit of my history when we spoke last about the narcissistic relationship I was in. But going back to my entire life, I have been raped. I have been held at gunpoint. I have been kidnapped, and none of those things were done by anybody else but black men. I've been abused. I've been through every situation that you can possibly think of, and it's always been at the hands of black men.
Wow. Well, listen, I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope when you watch Hardly Initiated and you see Ryan Ty and every other black man that we bring on here, you understand that was those
Which is
black
why I
men.
said to you, no, and I don't hold everybody or all black men to those standards or expectations. However, what I have decided to now start doing is be more intentional about paying attention to character as opposed to race. Because I was being loyal to my black men and I was being loyal to trying to have develop relationships in those spheres, but the characters was where I was having the issue, and I was realizing it was more of a how we were raised, um, with the mindset that black people have and the mindset that a lot of black men have to the entitlement to women's bodies.
And listen, I want you to hold it tight right here because I got a lot of callers piling up in here.
Right.
Thank you so much for
Sure.
sharing your perspective, though. And next time I want to be able to see your face. Okay.
I promise I will do that for you.
Got
All right,
to.
thank
That's
you.
mandatory. So it sounds like she just in general was expressing, some of these negative things that she experienced with black men.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like she dove deep enough into the next, kind of what she's testing out now to kind of give us too much feedback on what's going on the other side.
Right. We'll figure that out next time.
Let's
it looks
bring
like
up-
we got somebody else in here. We got Awa. That's in. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right here. Look at that.
What's up?
What's up?
Wait, did I butcher your name?
Yes, Ava. Yeah,
Ava.
Is it
Ava.
a V?
Ava.
Well, you misspelled
Yes.
it. That's a W, not a V.
No. It's
W.
yes, but that's how you pronounce it. Where were you from? Where you from?
I was born in Germany. My parents from Iran, so
Okay.
I'm here living in Bethesda, in
Okay.
Maryland. I am 30 years old.
Okay, and you calling to
Wow.
tell us that you love black men, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
See, now that's what I'm
yes.
talking about.
First
So
of
let's
all,
hear
hold
it.
on,
Let's
wait. Let's get the horns going right here.
Yeah.
Okay, you
'Cause all
coming
this,
on here.
all this black men hate right now. Oh my
Right. I
goodness.
like. Okay, so she on here choosing right now.
Let's do it.
So
Let's do it.
let me ask you this. What has been your experience with dating black men?
I feel like they're I have no issues with them. I feel like they're more kinder, more friendlier, and they're more engaging. I vibe more with black men.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
And friendly, engaging. Now, this is the thing. Let me ask you this, Alba. Let me ask you this, because one of the things that I hear from non-black women is that the ones that like black men, they say that black men have this level of bravado and confidence that white men specifically do not have. Do you find that black men are generally more confident?
I feel like they're more confident in themselves, like how they interact with other people and to show off the self, but in confident way.
Damn.
Okay.
Interesting.
And in general, was there a point in your life where you made that decision, or since you were young, you always typically dated black guys?
I had like in younger days, I have like attracted to black men. So
Okay. And okay, so and I'm assuming you out in public with some of these black men, you having a good time. When you are in public with these black men, what is the general kind of feedback or vibes that you get from other Black people that see you guys out together?
Um, they're very, very respectful in the ways that I feel respected. There's no issue. Was no issue in public.
Okay. So she's not in Atlanta.
Well, listen.
Because let me tell you, I bring one of them white honeys out there in Atlanta. the whole show getting canceled.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something. Here's what I wanted to. I'll tell you this much. I'm interested to hear how your adventure is gonna go, or your story and experiences are gonna go dating these Black guys. So please, info@hardlyinitiated.com.
Yeah.
And listen, matter of fact, if you find one, you get hitched up. I want to see the photo. I want the selfie photo. We're gonna pull it up here on the show. But Ava, thank you so much for calling in, sweetheart.
Thank you so much.
No doubt.
I'm gonna
shout out to the international listeners though.
Man, what I just hear in general is that the European sisters really like brothers.
I'm gonna go as far as to say that Black men are at the top of the market, in the top of the marketplace in most places.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. I want to ask this too. So we got one more person here I want to bring up here. Let's bring up Des here. She's been sitting in here waiting patiently. Des, what's popping?
Hey, I'm good. How y'all doing today? Thank y'all for letting me be on y'all's platform.
What's up, Des? You got that Cali vibe. Where you from, Des?
Texas, actually.
Texas. Okay, Texas. I can see that.
Laid back, chill. Des, you dating outside your race or what?
So, and any of my serious relationships, they've only been with Black men. But I can say I was overseas for a year, living in the UK for school. And I can say that being in other cultures, it's a little easier to kind of see why someone would date outside their race. I did talk to a few white guys, I guess British guys, while I was over there. So, I mean, I'm more about like compatibility more than anything. I think that if you can reach me at my mind level, then I'm going to be more attracted to you more so than what you look like and those type of things. But like I said, I'm mostly because I'm more, I guess, a little socially conscious. White guys, if they aren't to that level, it's very hard for me to kind of like be like, oh, okay, or explain, because I don't want to explain things to you every day in our relationship, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Which mean you a socially conscious white guy?
I mean, but there are some out there. So that's what I'm saying. Like I've seen that in some of the men that I've talked to, like when I was overseas, like they are more aware of racial things that are going on in America, things that are going on in their own communities. So, I mean, it's more so, like I said, about where you are intellectually than I feel like where you are is like your bravado or those type of things, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But like I said, I've only like seriously dated Black men, but I've never been somebody to say like, oh, that white guy's a bad dude just because he's a white dude. You know what I mean?
So what are you saying though? Are you saying that would you seriously consider, or matter of fact, not consider, would you seriously date a white man?
Yeah, would you marry a white guy?
I would. Like I said, I live in Texas, so I would come from a pretty conservative area. So I mean, as far as like in Texas, maybe I don't know. It's like it's hard because like there has been some like guys. I went to Texas A&M, so there was like white guys down there who I was attracted to, went on a couple dates with, things like that. But like I said, it's more about your mind. So I feel like you said, Cali, like I feel like I might vibe better with like a Cali vibe type of dude, you know, like white guy more than anything. But like I said, it was more so about your mind than anything else for me. And I think like we have to get out of this mindset of like we need to be this certain version of ourselves in order to attract this type of Black man. We need to be this certain version of ourselves to get this. No, you need to be who you are, and then let whoever is attracted to that come to you. You know what I mean?
All right, Des, thank you so much for coming up here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
God bless. Now we got, the thing is, we got a whole nother half of this show, and I know we got to bring the ladies on. So did you want to take one more call? We ready to get our ladies going?
Let's just, man, let's go ahead and get the ladies on, man.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get the ladies on now, because what we're going to do now, y'all. Again, it was that conversation with Dr. Umar was so dense, man. I spoke to some very special ladies that I wanted to speak and to bring on the platform, because they are incredible and have incredible perspective to add to the conversation. In fact, let me go ahead and introduce who we gonna be bringing up on this joint here now. All right, because first, I'm so excited about this young lady here, because this young lady is a relationship and dialectical behavior coach. Yeah, look that one up, guys. Y'all probably seen her because she's the host of Talk to Me Kitty, or you might even saw her making a viral appearance on tonight's conversations. But today, she on today's conversation with Hardly Initiated. We in here rocking with Kitty Rose. Welcome to Hardly Initiated.
Kitty Rose,
Hey,
what up?
baby. Hey, can y'all hear me?
Man, speaking of a beautiful chocolate sister.
I like that set too. She's going crazy over there.
That set is beautiful, Kitty.
Yo, Lano, zoom in.
Thank you.
Get a good look.
Yeah, man. Lon over here playing games, man. Kitty, look, man. Thank you so much for coming up on here and joining us for tonight, for this conversation here tonight, okay?
Of course.
Listen,
Kitty, let me tell you, we heating up too. I know you heard that conversation about that.
I just heard the whole conversation. Oh, yeah.
matter of fact, I want to ask this because, by the way, another thing, Kitty, you are a wife, right? So that's clear.
Mhm.
But while you were dating, before we go into it, this ain't the conversation. I want to get your perspective here. You a chocolate sister, a beautiful chocolate sister. I want to know, did you experience any, level of, being overlooked or disrespected, by Black men in particular, in the process of, dating and courting?
Yes, I have. For a long time, as a matter of fact. It's just something about dark skin. Someone actually said on one of my posts, it was on one of my YouTube videos, that dark-skinned women are known for being jealous, mean, and hateful, or something like that. And I'm guessing that is the orientation that people have towards dark-skinned women. I don't understand why. I know colorism is a thing, especially when we talk about Willie Lynch and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely dealt with it. It didn't really affect me. I mean, because that's just people's preference. I'm a beautiful, chocolate, confident woman. Can't worry about everybody.
But see, that's the difference. You got the strength, you got the swagger, you got the confidence to, hear those things, keep it pushing, kind of dust it off your shoulders and know who you are. Unfortunately, a lot of ladies don't have that. And, they could let that, break them and, their confidence in many ways. And I'm happy to hear that was not your reality. So big shout out to you. And in fact, what I want to do
real quick, because we're getting ready to kick off the second half. So this is the thing, the chat got kind of crazy. So I'm gonna have to shut down the chat for a second for members only. Shout out to the initiative.
No, that ain't shutting it down. That's turning it up. It's members only in there.
It's
members only in there now.
Club.
Okay. So let's get it popping. All right. So look, initiates only. If you want to join the chat, please go ahead, guys. Get the membership, and you get to join the conversation here with us. And if you want to go ahead and share
another one,
any memberships with the family, you can always go ahead and do so. And what I want to go ahead and do here, I want to add our second half here, this conversation, because again, we're going to start this joint out. All right. We have one of my favorite therapists coming here to the table because we bring in here a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified health and relationship coach, helping you with these negative attachments that you might be dealing with in your life. We here rocking with Taylor Chella. Welcome to Hardly Initiated. We all here rocking tonight. How y'all doing, ladies?
So good. It's good to see y'all. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Hey, Taylor.
Yes. What up, Taylor? Did you catch the first half of that conversation?
I did. I saw almost everything. I think I came in like 10 minutes after y'all started.
Wow. What did you think about that?
I thought it was very interesting. I was like, let me get my notepad out. I was really into it. I was sitting right here the whole time.
Taylor, I'm looking at you and, you're a very beautiful brown skin sister. I just asked Kitty herself as well, because, we talked about that as well in the conversation with Dr. Umar. I went into an aspect of colorism, which is very different because we never talked about colorism as it related to dating. And even Kitty came on here, just like the lady, Tamika, who was on the show prior, both beautiful chocolate sisters that said, yes, I've experienced this. It's like that, mocha, kind of level woman in the dating space. Did you ever feel like, feel like you at any point felt, disrespected or overlooked because you may not have been light or fair enough and you might experience some discrimination or something unfair from from other Black men?
No. And I actually, the only time, and this might sound however it sounds, but the only people that brought that to my attention were women. And it was like later in my life. So wasn't until I got to Atlanta that I even heard things like that. Like I didn't experience that. I believe that it happens. I get it. But that was not my experience.
Okay, got it. So see, she got the complexion for protection right there. She got that right one. But it's interesting because I think it is an important conversation, because it is these conversations that you'll find that, when you talking in particular to, our community, or when you talking race in general, there are conversations that's relevant, and it's just interesting to me that was one. But in particular, I brought you ladies on because obviously people have been hitting us, have been buzzing us about that conversation that we had with Dr. Umar. And I want to bring some other very well-respected people that I know and that I trust to bring some perspective to that conversation. There's one piece of that conversation in particular that has been going very viral, that everybody's been looking and talking about. And what I want to do is I actually want to play that video so we can go ahead and get that popping now. So let's go ahead and everybody, I want you to go ahead and get that video played now so we can go ahead and take a look at this video that we are now seeing all over the internet.
Emotionally damaged people are always sexually promiscuous. Let me say this again. If you are traumatized, if you are emotionally damaged, you are promiscuous. And do you want to know why?
Why is that?
Emotionally traumatized people require constant validation from others. You married to a woman who's been traumatized, abuse, abandonment, whatever. When you're not around her for too many days, she has to entertain another man because her trauma dictates constant validation. And constant validation means I must have a man in my personal space. You ever date a woman who was crazy about you? She absolutely loved you, so you thought. It was really addiction.
Yeah.
When you finally let her go, when you finally got her to stop stalking you, she ended up with another man like that. And your ego took a hit. You said, wait a minute. I know that woman was crazy about me. Climbed in my window, came to my... You understand? She was... She was crazy about your presence in her life. And the minute you distance yourself from her life, she found a replacement without a problem.
Interesting. So here we kind of getting into pretty much Dr. Umar breaking down a lot of the causes for promiscuity from a lot of the, from young ladies in particular. He just mentioned a lady here. He said broken people. So I can assume that that's relevant for both men and women, but we did use the example of a young lady at the end. So just generally, I can actually go ahead. Let me toss this one to Kitty here so we can get started and hear your perspective on this one. Are we agreeing with where Dr. Umar is going with that statement, or is that one a bit incorrect?
There was some truth in what he said. The problem that I have is that it was an absolute statement, and that is very damaging to make an absolute statement. First things first, promiscuity is a behavior, and it is different depending on the person. Promiscuity typically comes from like past experiences, attachment issues that will influence a person's relationship to casual sex and multiple partners. But depending on the person and the type of emotional damage that they have is the factor. You can have a person who has low self-worth, who will use sexual activity for validation and reassurance and things like that. But you'll also have another person who has low self-worth, who feels as though they're inadequate or they're unworthy, and they'll feel like they're undeserving of the emotional connection that comes with sex. You also can have a person who's emotionally damaged, who may have, let's say two people have a fear of vulnerability. It may show up completely different. One person may use promiscuity to feel as though, almost in a sense, like they're in power. They may use it to, or no, actually, I'll say this. A person who has a fear of vulnerability, one person they may use this and say that, okay, I'm going to present this fear of vulnerability to avoid the risk of establishing a deeper connection. But another person who has a fear of vulnerability, who's emotionally damaged, we're talking about emotionally damaged people, they may have a fear of vulnerability, And they may say, well, you know what? Now I have an aversion to sex. You may have one person who feels as though I'm going to use this as a coping mechanism, and this is going to make me feel powerful. I'm going to use this to control. You may have another person that says, you know what? I've had some sexual trauma. I've had some emotional wounds, and sex in itself makes me feel like I'm at a risk. Sex in itself makes me relive something that was damaging to me. So to say that all people who are emotionally damaged, and he made an absolute statement, are promiscuous is damaging to the culture, it's damaging to people, especially people who actually have emotional wounds and are operating in it. To put that behavior on somebody is inappropriate. It is definitely unethical for a clinical psychologist.
Wow. I want to ask this too, because we hear a lot of talk about, isolating it to female promiscuity and male promiscuity. A lot of men feel like sex is worse. It hurts women different. It's not the same for guys. We hunters, y'all are receivers, right? And it's a little bit different. We're affected differently by a high, number of sexual partners.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's incorrect? Is that the same? Is it different? What's your thoughts on that?
Can I take that, Taylor?
No, they're cheesing.
Somebody got to talk.
Cheesing.
Okay, well, I'll chime in, and then Kitty, I would love to hear what you have to say. First of all, I think it's important to note that it's impossible to tease out what's the point when it starts to affect you, like at what number, right? Like there's no way to objectively determine, especially for a mass of people, to say like, okay, at this number is when you will start to experience emotional turmoil, the emotional effect of all that you've done, or at this point is when it's going to begin to affect you. There's no way to objectively determine that. So the question in and of itself to me is almost a non-starter. Like it's not starting from a place where there's validity in it so I want to say that. Now, if we were, for the sake of the conversation, to entertain the question anyway, do I think that men and women are affected differently? Yes. Do I think that it's all biological because you're a man? No. I think that there is a huge aspect of why, like the outcome of like how we've ended up interpreting our experiences and what the impact is on us. There's a large part of that is influenced by what people tell us we should be experiencing. That for women, maybe that you should be experiencing some sort of emotional connection to a man, or in that he should be experiencing one with you if he's doing this with you. And for men, this idea that I can have as many partners as I want, whenever I want, and it doesn't affect me. I mean, how much of that, just the idea of it, affects how I then behave or how I've interpreted my experience? And then there's another part of that question, which is like, what did it actually do? And that part, to me, is most important, because that's about the individual. Right, the individual, where you could have one man and one woman, you got one man and another woman who have had the same number of sexual partners that have a very similar experience of feeling. I'm not even going to go into the details of what they might be feeling. Let's just say they have a very similar interpretation of their experiences. And then you can have another man and another woman that have a different number of partners, and they might have very different experiences or the same experiences. The point is, does this sound confusing? Yes, because it's about the individual. And so it's important to know how it affects you, right? And trying to tease out the noise of what have I been told that my sexual experiences should be like, and what is it really? And that gap in between isn't what it is for you is the thing that's most important.
So is there not a general truth? Like if I put, 10 women and 10 men in the room, and all of them have had sex with 100 people per a piece, is it generally true that majority of the men and women will, either have good or bad relationships? Is that not necessarily is that not generally true?
I'll never generalize that. I never will, because there's going to be someone who's going to be my client who has a very different experience. And so I just will not make a statement like that, although I understand what it's getting at. I mean, that to me is almost like a magazine, like a cosmopolitan quiz. If you do this, then it's that. If you do this, then it's that. And like, is it maybe true? I mean, generally, maybe, possibly. Is it true for you in a season, and then in another season it's different? Context always matters. So I won't because I take my profession seriously. I'm not going to make a generalization like that, although
Right.
I do understand why it might be helpful to be able for some people to organize information that way. I won't do it. Now, my personal opinion, my personal experience can be different, but because I'm speaking as a therapist, I'm just not going to make that statement.
Okay.
My experience is very different than someone else's.
No, I get what you're saying. I respect it. So, Kitty, what's your thoughts on that one?
I'm kind of in the same space with Taylor because, we work with clients on a day-to-day. So we have to consider a lot of factors whenever we say this. And a lot of this is going to be a lot more opinionated than anything. If we're talking about in regards, because I'm assuming you're talking about promiscuity in relationships and the health and
how it affects men and women, if it does affect us the exact same, or are there some differences in how promiscuity might affect a man and a woman differently? That exist?
Okay, so this is a context we have to bring in, and I like to remove gender because I think socioculturally this is when we start bringing in gender, and I don't think that that's appropriate given these conversations. But when you're talking about a person's belief system, their values, their upbringings, their attitude, their temperaments, their personalities, that's when you should factor those type of conversations in. So if it's a person who has a certain personality disorder or has a certain attitude towards sex or has a certain belief system or they came up in a certain environment, then yes. But if we're making it divisive and we're talking about gender, it's not going to be a productive conversation. And that's kind of where me and Taylor both are in this conversation. In regards to a man or a woman who's more promiscuous or anything like that, that really doesn't matter. It's more so what's the attitude towards it, okay? And then what's a person's motive and their intention when we're talking about this conversation of promiscuity or sex partners and stuff like that. So you can't really give a blanket statement when it comes to that because then it'll be divisive.
So what do you mean when you say their attitude towards it? It's more about the attitude towards it. What do you mean by the attitude?
Attitude towards sex. So some people have and I don't want to say negative or positive. I'm going to say healthy or unhealthy attitude instead of negative or positive. Some people have a healthy attitude towards sex. They feel like this is a liberating experience. This is for me to explore myself, things like that. And some people have an unhealthy orientation to sex where it's this is for validation. I need this. This is for me to validate my experience, things like that. So that's what I mean when I say the attitude towards sex. Not everything when we talk about promiscuity in regards to not sexual immorality, but multiple partners and stuff, it's not always a bad thing given the person. I'm against it because of my own personal beliefs, but some people may have a healthy attitude towards it and they may utilize it in a healthy way because of the attitude. And some people may have a unhealthy attitude towards it and they may use it in negative ways, such as coping mechanisms. That's what I mean when I say attitude.
Hold on, Kitty, because you're blowing my mind right now. Because here's the thing. The reality of a situation is a porn star who probably can have sex with, who knows, 150, 200 people in a year for work, whatever the case is, might have a really good attitude towards sex. They might show up chipper to the set. They might be super professional. They jump in there, they do their thing. Attitude is all good. And honestly, might not even think that the sex might be affecting them. They it's literally work. Be desensitized to, this is work. I had a good job. I love my job. Really good attitude. But don't you still think that still has, regardless of your attitude and your disposition to the actions, there still be some harm taking place through you actually still, acting in that way?
I personally do believe that if you are sleeping with multiple people, or if you have a long line of people that you have had casual sex with, consensual sex, anything like that, I do believe that it is going to affect you in the long run. I do. When you really take the time to truly connect with yourself authentically and you do some time introspective work and self-reflection, it is going to be something rooted in it. Regardless of the attitude, there is going to be an intention or a motive that's rooted in it that as you grow and mature, you'll realize was not conducive to the health of yourself in the future. That's a personal experience. That's my personal opinion. If I'm coming from a more professional standpoint, then people have free will. And we have to allow people to mature and develop at the rate that they have to. I will say this, Dr. Umar did make a great point when he talked about psychological age. I will say that because some people are still undeveloped. Absolutely. You can have a person who is 20, 30, 40 years old, and they are still undeveloped because they have not had the appropriate experience, the appropriate counsel, the appropriate knowledge to help them understand the severity of situations.
Yeah. Honestly, I loved the concept of the psychological age as well. And it reminded me of a conversation. And, we have me personally, I personally tell, especially younger ladies, and I think a lot of people give the counsel that they probably should date a little bit older than themselves. And I think what we're talking about a bit is that conversation, because I think we're talking about the psychological age. You want the maturity in that man. Obviously, it's a level of achievement and accomplishment to be able to provide is probably going to be in that upper levels of age as well. But just the maturity, the overall maturity and the development psychologically will be there in that older man. Would you also say that those things are also kind of connected in that conversation as well?
Somewhat. Somewhat. I'm gonna let Taylor take that one because
okay. So I think that let's split this into two simple categories, one being functional and the other being relational. So someone can be mature functionally or developed functionally, and those are the things like objective or tangible benchmarks that someone might have hit, or just like a number, which is something like a salary. Okay. Or do you have this or do you not have it? Like that's just an objective benchmark that someone may or may not have met. So someone can be functionally maybe mature or developed or ahead. That doesn't necessarily mean that relationally they're any of those things. I think that it's important for us to be able to make distinctions between those two categories. Ideally, of course, you want like all cylinders running. Sometimes oftentimes I would say that the wires get crossed where you might have, there's so many people are in balance where you might have been focused really heavily on the functional side, and on the relational side, you're underdeveloped. Or on the relational side, you're very warm, you're compassionate, you're empathetic, but functionally you're underdeveloped or you're immature. And so I think that there's an important distinction to make there. And that might be kind of where there's a little bit of a maybe sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. I think that I just want to highlight that part. Now, what was the original question?
No, well, the original question was the psychological age, because guys, just ladies in general, is it good advice for them to typically date guys older because of the psychological age and the development?
Right. I think generally, I'll go here with the general statement. I think generally, yes. I think generally, now, and I don't know, Kitty and I are very much into nuance and context. So my personal experience is influencing what I'm saying. And so like for me, dating older was always the case. So not only is that my personal experience and more positive, I've had more positive experiences in that, like in dating that way. And I think generally speaking, yes, women dating men who are older on a timeline is usually a better experience. Now, I have to say this. I get like a pink flag when we have like the general statement of women mature faster than men. I hear that often. I think we all have. We all have it. I hear it regularly. I don't think that's necessarily true. I actually find, and I hope I'm not taking this conversation in a different.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear this.
Okay.
Tell me how we're more mature than y'all.
I think that there are actually, especially in dating and relationships, I actually think that more men have more maturity in general.
Interesting.
Okay. I don't want anybody to, it's not all women. Okay. But I do think that, especially with where we're at right now, 2024, I find that a lot of men seem to have more awareness and I don't know if reasonability is a word, actually, maybe more reasonability around what actually makes a relationship work. And in that case, or rather I should say in that regard, I think that that really highlights that men have actually maybe even surpassed women in general. And I know if it's a little bit triggering, it might be a time for self-reflection, okay? But okay, I think that men are actually maybe surpassing or at least catching up. I gotta give you at least catching up to where women are. That's what I'm experiencing. That's what I'm seeing, even professionally, and that's consistently. I note that. Sometimes men thinking that women mature faster than men, like in general, kind of confuses them. Like they're like, because it's not necessarily true. And I think that they're almost experiencing that in real time, but have this idea that it should have been different, when the reality is that they might actually be surpassing, at least meeting women where they're at emotionally, relationally.
That's interesting.
I agree with that, and I'm going to just touch this point that Taylor just made, and that was a good point right there, Taylor. When people think of maturity, sometimes they isolate a lot of pieces that need to be in the conversation. Like for women, young girls, when they say that they're maturing quickly, a lot of young girls are parentified, and so in the process, they are trained to grow older or grow more rapidly than what they should be doing. They're assigned certain things that make them, cope certain ways or compensate in certain ways, like learning how to navigate responsibilities in life before boys do, because the household, when we're talking about cultural advantages and stuff like that, the household or your parents or your caregivers or your family, your community is telling you you're supposed to do this as a woman. And so you take on certain responsibilities and people think that's maturity. But maturity is also how you regulate your emotions, how you navigate distress, how you deal with your frustrations, how you communicate. And I will say this because I agree with Taylor on that. Men have an advantage. Our brains are structured completely different. And so that's another reason why you'll see, and I'm going to go back to what you said as far as like dating older men and stuff like that. That's another reason why you see a lot of young women go for older men, because we see that. We see that they can regulate their emotions. We see that they can manage things. They can communicate better, because those are spaces that they just have in their brain that just operate different from us. It does not mean that they're better partners. It does not mean that they're better for relationships. We just see that and attach ourselves to that. So no, I agree with Taylor on that, but I was going back to your question, Tasha, and I hope I didn't lose anybody, baby.
Cover a lot of ground.
Not at all. And I absolutely appreciate the perspective, man. Shout out to the ladies on here, chopping it up with the family and going ahead and listen, y'all, I want y'all to be able to get into this conversation. So any super chats you guys send over, I'm gonna be able to read it, to these amazing ladies, so we can go ahead and get your questions answered as well. Because what we're doing here, again, is I wanted to bring some people up here that I trust to be able to give some perspective on the conversation that we had with our brother, Dr. Umar, this past Sunday. And right now this all came from about us talking about the very viral right now conversation and statement that was made surrounding promiscuity, where Dr. Umar connected promiscuity to being broken. And I want to close this out here so we can really get some context on that conversation before we move to the next thing. But Kitty, if you felt like that was a bit unethical and probably a bit irresponsible to say was the actual connection to it, if we can find or make our best connection to what causes someone to move into a promiscuous lifestyle, what could we contribute that to?
Are you talking about as far as like trauma and past experiences? Are you talking about that? Are we talking about the origin of things?
Well, is that it? Is it the trauma or past experience that makes you pretty much take on or pursue a promiscuous lifestyle? Is that what it is?
Yeah. If a person has sexual trauma, if there was any type of sexual abuse, molestation, rape, anything like that, then sometimes you'll see that those victims feel powerless and they feel helpless. And so to cope with what it is that they have endured and to reestablish this sense of control and this sense of power, they will become promiscuous. Also, sometimes you'll see that people who didn't necessarily, they weren't the victim to the experience, but they witnessed it or they heard about it. Sometimes, and this is really going to be broad. Sometimes if a person sees that maybe somebody was molested that they were around, or they see that this person was getting sexual attention from men, we'll speak on women, they were getting sexual attention from men, and I'm not getting the same attention, and I like to be included, I want to feel accepted, then I'll become promiscuous, because then it gives me the attention and it makes me feel included like I need to be. So yes, there are certain experiences. They don't have to be complex trauma or anything like that. It can be adverse experiences that people have, and it can simply just be beliefs that people have adopted as well that makes people promiscuous.
Wow. I get it. Taylor, you got anything to add to that?
I'm glad that Kitty mentioned that last part too. The kind of like just seeing what's happening, or how other women are interacting with the world and how the world is interacting with them and how that can influence. I mean, we just heard on the first part of y'all's show, I don't remember the young gentleman's name, okay, but he said that he first got into Black women because of MTV. And when I hear that,
he was Jason on MTV.
and Tina's like, oh, okay, so and okay, fine. And I think that speaks to, right, it highlights this reality that someone can hear something like that. And I'm not, anyway, let me leave Jason alone. Okay. But the point being that people like, especially when you're immature, attention, that experience of affection, or what you think affection is, and can be influenced to be that way, even when they haven't had, to Kitty's point, I'm just really agreeing and reflecting back what we just heard, even when they haven't had something in the past. Like I think about Tariq from Power, and you know that he didn't have to live that life, but he chose to live that life because he liked the way that life looked, and he liked the thrill of it. And that parallel kind of principle, right? We know power isn't real, but the principle we could apply here. Like we could see sort of the same thing, that someone can really just see how how women are interacting with the world and how the world is interacting with them, and want a part of that. I mean, I'm in Atlanta and I moved here right after I graduated from college. So I think it's, when I look back on my experiences and when I was out, and really being able to see like how appealing that could be, especially if you lack discernment or an objective voice that can help to guide your decisions, because it looks really appealing and it looks really rewarding when we see now that it doesn't end up anywhere. But that instant gratification is really, really intoxicating for a lot of people, especially, I just think like, I don't know, pre-28 years old.
I do want to add one point, though, because I saw it in the chat. This is not just limited to women. There are men who go through sexual trauma as well. And especially if it's same-sex sexual trauma that they go through, and they may become promiscuous or sexually immoral and start sleeping with like a multitude of women to reestablish, their orientation, or, just to make them feel masculated again in spaces where they were emasculated. And then on top of that, one more thing is some people use promiscuity to help fill a void of emptiness and loneliness. So, and this is because I'm looking at the chat as well. I'm not in disagreement with Dr. Umar. I don't like the absolute statement. What he said, there are some facts, but it's layered when it comes to that. And not everyone who has emotional damage is promiscuous. I just wanted to highlight that again.
That this kind of takes us into the next part of the conversation that I wanted to, go on with you guys, because
I dropped a poll too, by the way.
We got a poll. What's the poll on? Let's talk about that.
I dropped a poll, true or false. If you are promiscuous, you have unresolved past trauma. So listen, we already got 150 votes on this thing, but we got some people saying false. False to that. We got a few people saying false, and I'm just curious because my thing is, it makes sense that you got some past trauma if you sleeping around with a bunch of people. So I'm gonna read the definition of promiscuous, so we can just make sure everybody on the same page about that.
Let's see that.
Promiscuous, okay? This is having or characterized by many transient sexual relationships. So my question is for the people who's saying no, who's saying false. If you are promiscuous, what's the reasoning behind it? I want somebody to call in and tell me that they are promiscuous and it is not because they got past unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
People don't like to hear the word trauma. Trauma has a negative connotation to it, and that's what the problem is. People hear trauma and they think extreme. No, it's simply not being included. Simply a lack of inclusion can make you promiscuous. You can be black sheep. As a matter of fact, you can have siblings who have more attention than you. You can have a social circle that didn't include you, and you feel like for that acceptance, because you are sensitive to not being accepted, you are sensitive to rejection, that if you show some type of sexual behavior, even if it's not sleeping with people, even if it's just enticing people, that's still some type of negative experience, or it could be deemed as trauma because trauma is subjective, that you have endured. So I think when people hear that term trauma, that's what's pushing them away. It can be anything. But yes, a lot of people have gone through trauma that they don't want to actually, they're in denial almost in a sense. They don't want to identify it as trauma, and it probably actually is.
I like how you noted that. So basically, it's not necessarily this huge issue or this huge moment that might have happened. It could be some other, I guess, some things that they wouldn't have noticed that maybe compounded that caused them to be in this promiscuous lifestyle.
Exactly. So, and I don't know if we can go ahead and jump to that, but me and Taylor, one thing that we have always connected with is how we deal with attachment trauma. And so for people who come from like environments where there was possibly maybe there was a parent who wasn't, available, they weren't as responsive to a child's emotional needs as often, someone may deem that as not trauma. And somebody else may say this was a traumatic experience for me because I didn't have a stable environment. I didn't have security. And so they seek security in other people. And that still can be trauma, and that still can make them promiscuous. So yes, it's layered, but it can be traumatic just given what the person has gone through and given that person's personality as well.
So you know what? Listen, first of all, we already dropped that joint, right?
Oh yeah, we dropped the poll. The poll is out. True or false? If you are promiscuous, you have unresolved past trauma. Right now, we got over 250 votes, and 70% of the people are saying absolutely that's true right now. Only a small percent, well, it's a fourth. About 28% now is saying that that's actually false. So I wonder if these people is just, like Kitty is saying, they just have this negative association with trauma, the word trauma,
could be,
and not want to identify it. Or is it actually 25% of people? This is 1 out of 4 people that are convinced that they can go out and be promiscuous and it has nothing to do with past trauma.
We're going to see, and let's, while that poll is running, guys, I actually want to take this conversation into the next level, into the transition it into another part of the conversation that I thought was really good when we spoke to Umar, because a lot of people that we have had, a lot of our initiates that have come on and talked to us when they send us emails, a lot of people got some little raggedy little attachments going on with some folks that they probably should not have relationships with. And I got Taylor Chandler on here, which is the secure attachment therapist, and I got Kitty Rose on here, who always dropping great game. So I want us to get some context to this. In fact, we actually have a clip that we could reference to get some context on one of the portions of this conversation. Lana, let's put that clip up real quick.
How can you fully love if you're too afraid to get hurt? And if you can't fully love because you're too afraid to get hurt, you have no business dating in the first place. Because what you might mistake for love is nothing more than a psychologically unhealthy attachment or addiction for someone else's presence in your life to validate you. Right now, we got an epidemic of black men killing their women. That wasn't love. You couldn't kill somebody you loved. You know what was going on? He was addicted to her presence in his life. His illness cannot exist without her presence in his life. And because he can no longer have her presence in his life, he's going to take her life. That's not love. That's psychopathology and addiction. Love don't hurt. If it hurts, it has to be trauma.
So here's the thing, ladies. We have had one initiate who's probably on this call right now, watching this show, who've called up here 2 times. Well, a second time anonymously, dealing with this.
Hell of a story.
I'm talking about this toxic ass relationship that's been going on for years has affected her life in many ways that she just can't seem to get out of. And I think Dr. Umar there, that was a part of the comment. Matter of fact, I don't even want to steer your opinion on this. I first want to get your thoughts, but I then want to go into why some of us fall into some of these very unhealthy attachments that some of us regularly fall into and some of us unfortunately stay in. But just first, generally, what's your thoughts on that clip with how Dr. Umar broke that joint down? Not everybody at once.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Thank you. So I think that what he's talking about is codependency. He's talking about codependency. So codependency, the way that I often describe it, and you're going to see it if you Google it, said in different ways. The way that I simply put it is that codependency is looking for something on the outside of you to soothe what's on the inside of you. And codependency and addiction do parallel. I worked in addiction for a couple of years when I was in grad school and a little bit after that. And that was how I really understood codependency. And then when I decided to really focus on attachment, I recognized really how similar they were. I mean, almost identical. So he's talking about his codependency, where people get that from. The experiences themselves that individuals develop codependency from can be different. That would take a while to go down every single way that someone develops that way of relating to someone. But some big sort of like buckets or categories of experiences that someone may have had that help them to develop codependency is something like seeking validation from someone other than myself. I'm gonna just talk about that one as it's such a big one, although there are some other big players. That's a really good one, seeking validation from someone outside of myself. Ideally, when you're a child, you're getting that from your parent. Sometimes we confuse functional caring for relational caring, or we think that functional caring is all that there is. Something like making sure that there's a roof over your head and clothes on your back. Are all of those important? Absolutely. We need those to literally survive. But when there aren't relational needs met, things like validation, acceptance, approval, and that isn't met, with your primary caretakers, which for everyone are your two biological parents. There's no substitution for two biological parents. Okay, that's a whole conversation in and of itself. But when those needs are not met by parents, then we do develop into adults who are still seeking that validation from someone else. And something like codependency can absolutely and often does develop from experiences like that.
Got it. So when it comes to, you talked about, a matter of fact, before I even ask any follow-up questions, let me just get Kitty up on there to see. You disagree with, Umar a bit on the first, portion of the conversation we talked about. Do you feel like he hit that one on the head?
Yeah, that part right there, I definitely do agree with, especially when he started talking about attachments. Let me start by saying that experiences lead to maladaptive coping mechanisms that can manifest as insecure attachment patterns. And Taylor knows this because she specializes in this. We have different attachment styles that we operate in. And so there are certain attachment styles, the insecure one, the anxious preoccupied, the disorganized or fearful avoidant, the dismissive avoidant, that can make it challenging to be in relationships. What he was speaking on sounds more like an anxious preoccupied or fearful avoidant, because those are the ones who will cling on, and you see a lot more codependency in those two attachment styles. So like an anxious preoccupied person may be jealous, they may be possessive, they may be clingy, they may overthink, they may overanalyze, they may use certain cognitive distortions like personalizing, jumping to conclusions, trying to read into the future, trying to read a person's mind. And they'll become hypervigilant, or they'll become extremely anxious. And like if there's distance between them and a partner, or if a partner has friends, or if a partner just wants space and stuff like that, because it triggers something inside of them. It shifts their nervous system. It puts them sometimes into fight mode, to where they're having to attach, because their worth is attached to other people. Their worth is attached to external factors. The same thing is very similar to people who are fearful avoidance or disorganized. They're disorganized within themselves. And so it's a lot of push and pull that goes on with them. that fear of rejection, a lot of times it's more so the fear of abandonment that takes place, and they become extremely hypervigilant when they feel like, and it doesn't have to be real abandonment, it can be perceived abandonment. They become extremely hypervigilant and afraid that something's going to happen, and they can sabotage because of that. You know, they can keep on chasing a person, they can start trying to do things that are destructive, trying to hurt people. So yeah, he's absolutely right. And those are attachments. Most people attach insecurely. It's not love that they feel. The moment that they feel some strong emotions, they feel that euphoric bliss, the newness of a relationship and things like that, and they attach the idea to that person. And so when something happens different, their reality is kind of shattered. The idea that they created is kind of shattered. And so inside of them, they don't know how to deal with that internally because something has disrupted them. And they cope, they do things as quick as they can. They're very impulsive. They do things, they try to do whatever they can to just try to cope with whatever it is that they're feeling, that emotional overwhelm and suffering that they're feeling on the inside. So he was absolutely right on that part.
So that's interesting because somebody that's, you know, in that place, they wouldn't, I mean, can they ever really recognize what love really is? Because it seems like the lens that they're looking through is already it's a distorted lens. So their whole idea of what's love and what's validating is distorted. So that person would typically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much have the same repeated patterns in the type of people they'll typically attract and how their dating experiences will look like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the people that we're talking about, the people with these insecure attachment styles, they can change. They can work through these problems. It takes a lot of steps, but they're not impossible steps. For sure, people who are dealing with high anxiety, you have to get that anxiety under control. The orientation to people, and definitely dealing with and addressing childhood wounds. Because if you're looking for people to fill voids, like if you didn't have security in a childhood, you didn't have stability in a childhood, and you're looking for it through the means of another person, it's never going to work out for you because it's still something external. If you're looking for validation, if you're looking for reassurance, if you're looking for security through another person and this person drops the ball, this is going to alter your orientation towards yourself. It's probably going to reinforce some negative beliefs that you have about yourself that can lead you to depression, anxiety, things like that. It's a number of things, but you absolutely can change that. A lot of it is just linking back to the trauma that you have endured and acknowledging the trauma as being real. What is it that you went through? Some people try to mask what it is that they went through. They try to avoid it, but you have to go back. And it's almost like you have to relive it in a sense, just to connect back with it, to get through it. I'll let Taylor finish on that one.
You're totally right that it can change and will change. There's two main things that someone needs, and it's just the willingness to do it, and then actually showing up to do it. But attachment, in short, your attachment style can absolutely change. And we do it all the time. So it's really just being willing to be aware, being willing to be more specific, to be willing to be wrong, because all of us only do things that we actually believe are the right thing to do. We actually believe that it's going to get us to the outcome that we want, even when it's a dysfunctional way to do it. And so if the way that you're relating or the outcomes that you're getting are not congruent with what you actually want, and you want that to change, you also have to be willing to be wrong. And that sounds simple until you're challenged to do something different. And so that's a conversation in and of itself. But yeah, it can totally change as long as you're willing to show up. You can do it.
No, listen, this is, and I know this is relevant to some people that I've seen here right now, because now that I think about it, we've never actually even really talked about attachment styles in detail on our live format. And it's interesting because you're breaking it down for us, and this might really connect with some people because y'all know what y'all going through. So what I actually want to do at this point, Ryan, is let's actually open up the hotlines real quick. Hotline, please. And we'll go ahead and put the link inside the chat. And I'm going to give some of you guys the opportunity to come up here and speak to these two amazing young ladies as we continue to, carry on this conversation, and actually soon to close it out. Anybody that wants to just send over a super chat and ask a question that way, we'll take those as well. We got to get these ladies in bed soon, so y'all better go ahead and get this thing sent over. But I think this is a really important conversation because you made a really good point, Taylor. We're operating from what we think is best, you know, and that's why the saying goes, you know, the road, you know, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm.
They say that. And a lot of us think that we doing things the right way. We be really thinking like we looking at the relationship from the outside, seeing it's toxic as hell, but you know, he or she might really think that this is love and that it feels good and that they're going to the next level. Trust me, I see it happening every day, even in my own personal life. And if you can, just generally, while we're getting people in the room, so we can have this conversation, break down just the basic attachment styles so we can kind of just get a general idea and feel of that if you can. Just give us a general understanding.
Sure. And I'll give a really practical way that what you just said shows up often. For example, I think it's the best thing to shut down in this argument. Now, someone like consciously thinking that, probably not, but they might be thinking something like, if I say something else, things are going to get worse. And so I'm actually thinking that by me not talking right now, even though you're trying to get me to open up, I actually think that I'm saving us rather than hurting us. Does that make sense, y'all? Before I get into this,
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just it's a really common way a really common example of how someone might be thinking they're doing the right thing when actually they are, that when they're actually doing something that's hurting their relationship. So let's talk. I agree. It could be a really long show, but we're going to make it really brief. So there's 4 different attachment styles. There's 2 different categories. Okay. So there's the secure category and there's the insecure category. On the secure side, there's just secure. Okay. There's one style that everyone on the insecure side is trying to get to, the secure attachment style. On the insecure side, we've got 3 main styles. The anxious preoccupied style, we'll call that person anxious preoccupied. The second style, the dismissive avoidant, the dismissive type, and then the fearful avoidant type. There's also a disorganized type. Kitty, I heard you point out the disorganized type. It's very similar, to the fearful avoidant type. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to loop the disorganized type with the fearful avoidant type. So we've got 3 because they're so similar. There's some nuances with disorganized, but I'm going to leave that out of this conversation. Okay. So let's talk just about the insecure types real quick. The AP, the anxious preoccupied type. The anxious preoccupied type is going to find themselves ruminating about the relationship often, usually thinking that the fixing the relationship or that fixing the relationship is their responsibility. So the anxious type often feels like they're carrying the emotional load in the relationship, usually end up feeling like they're being taken advantage of. Resentment grows and they've been acting like the nice guy or the nice girl for so long and they've been waiting for someone to reciprocate. It never happens. And then they lash out. Okay, so that's the anxious preoccupied type. Lash out, like explode or implode. So maybe I'm not the vocal type, maybe I'm not the expressive type. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily raising your voice, but it can be an internal breakdown. Okay, anxious preoccupied type, who often finds themselves, especially when they haven't done don't have awareness and haven't done any work on this, usually finds himself with the dismissive avoidant type. This is a conversation in and of itself. The dismissive avoidant type is often confused with the narcissist. It's not the same thing. Okay, but the dismissive avoidant type, Kitty, I love your they're so assuring. So the dismissive avoidant type it's almost like the anxious preoccupied type's arch nemesis. It's like their worst fear, and yet they always find themselves magnetized together. And it feels like it's just happening. Yeah, but it's not just happening, right? Like we're making these unconscious choices to be who we're with. But the dismissive avoidant type is like the shutdown person, the one who often is saying something like, or thinking, even if they're not conscious, something in their mind saying like, if I engage you right now, if I engage this problem, it's going to get worse, or something really bad is going to happen. Okay, this dismissive avoidant type is going to be more withdrawn, is going to try to solve problems by avoiding the problem. Okay, something really interesting about the dismissive avoidant type, they often get confused for being aloof. Okay, like they don't care. And they might even themselves say something like, I don't have feelings, or they feel numb. Or like maybe this feeling of like being, I know that I'm awake, but I feel like I'm asleep. that's getting a little bit into the, like almost like disorganized type, but that can be an experience of someone who has excessive avoidance with their own, literally their own self. So I don't feel connected. I feel like sort of out of my body. I might be really, a dismissive avoidant type is often very rational and usually gets irritated by the anxious preoccupied types overindulgence in emotions because they just want to stay on the surface, or they might not even say on the surface, but they're just trying to solve the problem, not recognizing that contacting your emotions and expressing your emotions is a part of solving the problem. So this was avoidant type, avoidant, withdrawn. The fearful avoidant type is going to be a mix of both the anxious preoccupied type and the dismissive avoidant type, but in the same person. Okay, so simple way to kind of think of this is everything I said about anxious, everything I said about dismissive, I might do either of those things depending on the way that the person in front of me is showing up. This doesn't always mean just like in romantic relationships. It can also be with family or with friends, coworkers even. Okay, but with romantic relationships, usually those are the most triggering environments. And so that's where our attachment issues are really showing up the most often. And then when we really look at it, it's usually in the family as well, right? But the fearful avoidant type, anxious and dismissive in the same body, okay? When sort of like an orbiting around each other, when my person comes towards me, I'm feeling sort of cringe, okay? I'm feeling like I want to get away. I'm feeling smothered because that's my avoidant side. That when you come towards me, when you request from me, I feel like it's a little too much. And I'm sort of afraid, if I'm really going to be honest, I'm sort of afraid that I can't live up to what it is that you want me to be. That's deep right there. Somebody needs just something right there. I feel that. Okay. So, so I might back up when you come forward, but when you back up and when you say, okay, well, you don't want me like that. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get on to the next. Now, all of a sudden, I want to meet your needs. I'm interested. I'm listening to the podcast. I'm reading the books. And suddenly I'm showing this presence that felt like I wasn't interested before or that I couldn't give before. So it's almost like this adrenaline because I feel you leaving me and that triggers me. And that's my anxious side. So that's a bit of a rundown. I don't know if it was super short, but hopefully it gives you secure types. And then the secure type, which does essentially like none of those things. Some key words for you like trust, vulnerability, and safety. They have healthy relationships with those things. It doesn't mean that I'm trusting everybody, but I have discernment and I'm aware, and I have, so what I mean with discernment in this context, I am able to make a distinction between what is safe and what is unsafe, and I'm appropriately designating those things. Right, where when I'm in my insecure attachment, things that are safe look unsafe and I'm suspicious. Okay, and things that look unsafe kind of look thrilling to me and I'm interested. But when I'm secure, I'm really reading things appropriately, correctly. And then I'm treating that person or that situation as such. So secure type, trust, vulnerability, and safety, have healthy relationships with those things. I'm able to develop safety within myself. And I am open and willing to attempt to develop that, co-create that with somebody else.
Yeah. And do I have time to just add a little piece?
He said, yeah.
I can't hear Tasha. I can't hear you.
Who's he talking to?
I'm not sure.
What's happening? Should I pull up YouTube?
Yeah.
They said go ahead in the chat though, in the private chat over here.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and speak just to add to Taylor's piece. So that way people can kind of get an understanding of where it's coming from. And Taylor, that was an amazing breakdown. You know, I love when you break this stuff down. But so people can understand where it is coming from in your childhood. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. So to link it back, because I know sometimes when people hear how it manifests, they still don't know if it's necessarily their attachment. So if we're taking it back and we're linking it back to your childhood, if you need more of a reference, if you are an anxious, preoccupied person, chances are your needs, your emotional needs were not met because of the inconsistencies, or your parents, your caregivers were not responsive to your needs in a way that was going to be conducive. to you making sure that your needs and stuff were met. So there's a lot of inconsistencies in your childhood. You probably come from an unstable background, things like that, to where it created this feeling of uncertainty. And so because of that uncertainty and that desire for you to find stability and stuff like that, you start seeking that reassurance and that validation and stuff like that in your relationships. If you are a dismissive, avoidant person, chances are you had a parent who was probably emotionally unavailable. You had a parent who dismissed your emotions. You had a parent who minimized, or you had an invalidating environment, and you felt as though you had to isolate yourself. You had to cope by shutting down. You had to silence your emotions, or you had to pretend like your emotions didn't exist. If you are a fearful, avoidant person, chances are in your childhood, you could have had a narcissistic parent. You could have had a parent who was struggling with PTSD. You could have had an abusive parent. Your parent was more than likely a source of comfort and fear. So there was a great lack of trust that was in your childhood as well, which is probably the reason why you dive more into the push and pull dynamic when you get older in your adulthood, because it's almost like, I want to trust you, but I'm afraid to trust you. I want love, but I'm afraid that someone's going to hurt me or you're going to hurt me. So it's a lot of hypocrisy with the fearful avoidant that shows up as well. All of these things in relationships are hard. When you're dealing with an anxious, preoccupied person, if you're the person who's not the AP, not the anxious, preoccupied person, you're going to feel like you're doing a lot of reassuring and you're having to put in a lot of emotional labor. And that's going to emotionally exhaust you. In a sense, it's going to make you run. And it's just going to reinforce whatever that anxious, preoccupied person feels. If you are a dismissive, avoidant person in a relationship, you're harder to be in a relationship with, because sometimes it seems like you're self-centered. Like Taylor said, it's like you're aloof, almost in a sense. And no one really can connect with you on an emotional level because you have made yourself unavailable in that space. It's hard for you to work up that emotional energy. You don't have the emotional capacity. You really can't identify your emotions. Your emotional awareness is low as well. It's hard for you to identify other people's emotions, to show empathy, to respond to those emotions, because you were dismissed and invalidated so many times that you've learned how to address your emotions that way. And if you're a fearful, avoidant person, you create a lot of confusion. You never really know. It's like one day we're good, the next day we're hot. One day we're cold, we're hot. And that's too much push and pull. And so you will confuse the person that you're in a relationship with. And this is why we say you have to do attachment recovery. It's important that you do attachment recovery, because if not, your relationship is always going to feel strained one way or the other.
That makes a lot of sense. And ladies, first of all, this is one of them notebook episodes. The way y'all breaking this here down today, y'all better have that damn notebook out, taking notes.
I got a couple of questions from some of the initiates. So I got one. Shout out to the Creole Butterfly. Is it possible to experience all of these attachment styles?
Yes. So attachment gets triggered by your environment and really context. So you can be anxious with one partner and then that relationship is done. You're like, I'm never doing that again. And then, oh, you're avoidant with another. So you can have different attachments, different attachment styles can manifest in you. I like to say that that's why it's important to understand that your attachment style is, in my opinion, the way that I use attachment in my work, the label of it, the identification of it often is like most important for language. Like, so that we're speaking the same language and we have the same reference point. Like, okay, you mainly do these behaviors, and we're able to really focus in maybe on those behaviors and why those behaviors manifest in you. But the more important, the more significant issue is that you have insecure attachment. So whatever you are in that category, the things that are being the problem is that I haven't resolved rejection and abandonment issues. It's hard for me to trust, or I trust the wrong people, things like that. Like, and any of those attachment styles can experience those like kind of I don't know how to say that, like almost universally insecure like ideas about relationships. Like I'll make that practical. An anxious person and an avoidant person can look very different in the way that they move in relationships, but both people feel like I'm not good enough. And if I let you in, you're going to hurt me. Okay. So does that make sense? Like that, I can have a very different manifestation, very different behavior, but the same kind of core negative beliefs about myself and about relationships.
Right. Right.
Makes sense. Ryan, do we have any other super chats that you want to take?
Yeah, I got another one. Shout out to Kat Harlem, one of the initiates. She says, and I think this is in reference to the past trauma, right? And I think she's wants to know this is inclusive of this particular avatar. So, so the majority of men who are considered players is probably a man dealing with trauma. Would you ladies agree to that, or is it some nuance or some context to that, or is a player pretty much?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with it because everyone's definition of player is different. And I need to know what that person's definition is because I know mine is different from what everyone's is.
Let's just assume she means player as a guy who sleeps with a bunch of women.
It doesn't necessarily have to be trauma. If we're looking at a sociocultural standpoint, many cultures promote that. Society deems that as normal for men to be promiscuous. That it's kind of like a badge of honor, like elevation in status. If you're sleeping with multiple women, we hear that across the board a lot when it comes to men. Even with me working with men, and I'm sure Taylor as well, working with men, we see that. If society or your grandparents, your fathers, your uncles, your friends are telling you that for you to be a man or to feel masculine, you have to sleep with multiple women, or for you to like go up this chain of command, this idealized chain of command, you have to sleep with multiple women. It doesn't have to be trauma. It can just be negative influence. So no, I wouldn't say that most players that is coming from trauma. I wouldn't say that. Taylor, you can give your point, but I wouldn't.
I thought that was a good answer.
I think so too. And this is me, you definitely being a therapist right now in this moment, that I think that if those kinds of questions of like kind of trying to diagnose someone, I'm about to take this a little bit to the sidebar, but are those kinds of questions of like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's my person's trauma, maybe it's my person's parents, maybe it's my person's the way they think about this. Well, maybe he's avoidant and that's why he does these things. This is a slightly different issue that like, if you're kind of constantly trying to diagnose someone and figure out what's going on with them so that you can help them, you're probably like the person Dr. Umar was talking about, where you're kind of like that kind of like addiction feeling of like, when they respond well to me, I feel great. And when they don't, I feel poorly. And they respond well to me when I'm helping them through whatever they're going through. So in case that's somebody, right? Like if it feels like I'm constantly trying to figure out, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe I'll send them this episode and tell them to listen to this and maybe that'll help them. You might want to look into like codependency. That's my only add, because Kitty, you really handled that.
I got another one. Shout out to KN, one of our moderators. She says, what do ladies think about MBTI types?
What the hell is that?
Do they relate to attachment styles at all? It looks like Taylor knows what that is. What
it's
is
the
that,
Myers-Briggs, and a lot of people have done this test in some regard, especially if you're in like corporate or in like some sort of leadership position. It's the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Okay, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. There's 16 different Myers-Briggs types. Truly the only way that I see it relating is that everyone has a Myers-Briggs type, even if you've never heard of the Myers-Briggs test, okay? Like Tyshawn, Ryan, if you all took the Myers-Briggs test, you would fall into a category just because of who you are. It's gonna match up with one of these 16 types, okay? Just like everyone has an attachment style, even if this is your first time hearing about attachment, you have one because it's defining behavior that you're already doing, okay? So that's the only way that I see them related. And the reason why I think that it's a good question, because often, for example, someone might have tested as an extrovert, because very simply, y'all, Myers-Briggs test, there's 2 categories in the very first letter of your type. There's 16 different, think of them like squares, 16 different squares. They're all different combinations of a personality style, okay? The first part of any of those 16 squares defines whether you are an extrovert or an introvert, okay? Regardless of what square you fall in, the very first thing that's defined in your Myers-Briggs test is gonna be whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. Someone might confuse, an extrovert does not mean that you're anxious, and an introvert does not mean that you're dismissive, avoidant. The way that I broke down those attachment styles, often they can get confused. Like an introvert can be can be assigned an avoidant personality because they need to take alone to feel more energized by themselves. That doesn't mean that you're avoidant. Okay. So that's why it's important not to conflate the two. The only similarity, the only parallel that I see is that everyone's got one. That's it.
Got it. Anything else you wanted to pick up?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Let me go ahead and bring my boy Street Media TV up here. He's been sitting patiently in the back. And I'm going to go ahead and take a few calls, guys. The link is in there for the initiation hotline. So you guys can go ahead and click that when you want. Street Media TV, welcome to the show, brother. How you living?
Hey, what's going on? These conversations for me is always interesting because I'll preface it with this question. I feel like we complain a lot in this country about what we go through as a people, what we have to go through. But then when we speak as if like we've been on an equal playing field with everybody else. And I'm saying that to say that, and this is in my question, my wife was just sitting here and I asked her the question, do Black people really know how to love? And what is it seemed like everything we did was out of either trauma or desperation, like we got to get this done because we always had an obstacle that we're going up against. So in these conversations, a lot of stuff we have is based off of trauma and the way we were raised, the things that we were told. So I guess the question that I'm asking is when I'm listening, do we really, as Black people in America, just as Black people, period, we suffer from, we have insecurities, period, being Black Americans. So how can we say that, how can we say that these things don't apply to us, period? I guess that would be my first question.
I'm asking my first question. Like,
I just got two questions. I just got two.
Yo, Street TV, a new co-host.
So, right.
I'm sorry. I just got two questions. If I can ask them.
Okay, so let me be clear, so I make sure we can understand your question. You're saying is just reword it for me one time, brother.
Just with everything that I'm hearing, from relationships to sex to being promiscuous, all these kind of things, right? As Black Americans, not everybody, but on the percentages, the majority of us suffer from a multitude of these situations, and a lot of times we talk as if we don't. And I just think being as Black Americans, we have all kinds of insecurities on multiple levels and relationships. And sometimes we hear I hear these conversations. It's like we talk as if we are equal to all other groups. And we reading this stuff from the book where as Black people, as Black Americans, I think we're separate from everybody else. We are trauma-based, period. For our education is based off of, I got to get this because of trauma. That's all I'm saying. We come out already, most of us are already super damaged, but we mask ourselves with a lot of material things to try to hide it. That's all. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get it. You know, I wanted to know. First of all, I get it now because it wasn't a damn question. You just had something to get off your chest.
Well, I guess I'm trying to get it out the best way I can.
No, I get it.
I do want to pin something on that. As Black people, we are absolutely capable of loving. We absolutely can. I know that we come from adversity. We do come from hurts. We come from oppression. We completely understand that. But there's a certain age and stage of our life where we have to stop operating in that victimhood and that victim mentality. And we have to utilize these conversations as opportunities to grow and not combat. If you utilize the conversations that we have when you just pretty much do the right appraisal with those and say that I'm going to make this something positive, I'm going to look within myself, do enough introspection work with the resources that I have now to fix whatever it is inside of me so I can get out of this victim mentality, so I can grow and I can be able to give the love that I need to, so I can find security in myself and not find security in other people. So this way I am able to love. So we as Black people, we absolutely can love. I come from a family that is full of marriages, full of love. We absolutely can. You just cannot allow other people's stories to be your stories. When you see opportunities to grow, you have to take those and separate yourself from certain traumas that don't belong to you.
Street Media TV. I think Kitty laid that one out pretty good. I'm gonna let you get it. I know you got one. I know you got one more thing to say. Go ahead.
And the reason why I said that, because I understand, I agree with what you're saying. Like I said, I've been married for 20 years, and the reason why I'm saying that, for the people that's in. I think that we can love too, but I just think that everything from the way we raise our children a lot of times in the communities that we come from is based off of trauma. It's based off of fear. When do we, how do we, I mean, I know it sounds good in the books, but in the actual experience of raising 4 children, caring for a wife for 20 years, how do we get void of the traumas that we actually have to go through? Even when you're in a happy marriage and you have your children, you got to still raise your Black boys in the community. It's like everything that we do is based. It's like the clock is ticking. Well, we're Black, so how do we get separate from that? That's all I'm saying.
And thank you, Street Media TV. We're gonna go ahead and address that one, but I appreciate you coming up here and sharing with us as you always do, brother. So yeah, I mean, no, listen, Kitty. I think your answer, I mean, addressed that question by about as good as you could, and you heard his second half. I don't think there's much you would probably need to add to that. But what's your thoughts on that? Did you feel like you pretty much tackled that one as clear as you could your first time speaking on it?
I don't think it's much that I can add to the second one, because I think this is when he started speaking from a subjective experience, I think that is simply his experience. So because I'll just put it like this. When we address behaviors and we address betrayals, our hurts, our fears, our anxieties, and things like that, and we are honest with ourselves, and we take the time that is necessary to allow ourselves to become aware of what it is that we are going through, when we allow our body to be our guide, when we allow our emotions to be our guide, and we have those necessary conversations with ourselves, and we are honest with ourselves, and we also have the necessary conversations with the people that we are in relationships or marriages with, then yes, then you can absolutely grow. Fear in itself is paralyzing because you don't take opportunities, you don't take risk when you're in that fear zone. You have to be willing to build the confidence, to seek those opportunities, to take new risk and step outside of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is going to keep you complacent. And then you also have to develop the right amount of empathy and compassion as well, not just for other people, but for yourself as well. You're a human being. We have human experiences. You are not perfect. If you're trying to meet the ideal of perfection, you are never going to find joy in your life or in your relationship or marriage. Don't see yourself as perfect. See yourself as a person who has the opportunity to make changes that are necessary. That's the only piece that I can add to that.
Thank you very much for that, Kitty. And first of all, thank you, ladies, so much for coming up on here and kicking it with the Harlem Initiative family this late at night. I just been looking at the chat and everybody been talking about how, oh my gosh, this is so good. These ladies are amazing and incredible.
1,500 people in the chat.
And it's still 1,500 people this late at night on here with us. So thank you, ladies, so very much for coming up on here and spending this time with us. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And Ryan, we don't see you on camera, but thank you, Ryan. Hey,
I appreciate y'all, ladies.
Thank you, Ryan.
Guys, listen, we're going to put all these amazing ladies' Instagrams in the chat. So if anybody want to connect with these amazing ladies, you can always do so, whether you're watching the replay or the chat. It's going to be right here in the description. And when I tell you, you heard what the brother said. He was pretty much just saying, we've been through a lot of shit, y'all. We got a lot of things we got to learn. We got a lot of things we got to figure out, which is why I absolutely love bringing ladies just like this onto the platform. And you're watching platforms like this right now.
Yes, and real quick, guys, because we did such a not so great job on the super chat today. We working on that. I do want to take care of this one last one that's just sent over by Creole Butterfly. Cool. She says, help me read this one. I lost it.
We're going to pull it up at.
Where do you begin the healing journey? Do you start by confronting the past or present issues?
Wow.
So I'll answer this question first.
Where do you begin the healing? That's a good question.
It is a good question. And I think something that's really a common thread throughout this conversation tonight is that there's not necessarily one right answer for everybody. It's so important for us to know, right? So for me, the way that I'm going to approach you, if you come to me with this question of how do I heal my past issues, I'm going with where your energy is. Like if it really, both things are important, handling your past, resolving the past, and being able to manage the present better. Both are important. But everybody is leaning in one direction or the other in terms of like what's important for you right now. What literally makes sense to you right now? Which direction to go? So I'm going with where your energy and your attention is. because it's all going to be intertwined. What's happening in your present is going to be directly related to what's happening in your past. So for me, I'm not concerned about in what order. That first session, that first contact is where's your energy at, and I'll ask you explicitly where does that feel like for you, and that's where we're going. And naturally, the other parts are going to be threaded in, because I'm always going to have a pulse on if the present feels important to you, I have a pulse on what's happening in your past. And if the past feels important to you, then I'm very aware of how it's showing up in your present. If you're not aware of that connection yet, it doesn't do us as practitioners much good to try to get you to see it. Realization is always going to be more powerful than impartation. So that is just where your energy is and what feels like really present for you. That's where we're going to go.
Can I just add one piece? Do I have time to add one last piece?
Go ahead.
Okay. Your triggers are always going to be your guides. Your triggers are responding to whatever is in your subconscious mind, the past experiences that you have, whatever is registered in your memory. So if something triggers you and you react to it, if something triggers you, it can be anything, and you have an emotional response to it, you react in a certain negative way, you have an impulsive response, you become dysregulated or anything like that, it's linked to something that you have dealt with in your past. And that means that there is something that needs to be addressed. If you are sabotaging anything, if there are any toxic patterns that you know that you are utilizing or multiple people have said, chances are it's something registered in your subconscious as well. It is linked to your past. Allow your emotions, allow your physiological sensations and responses, and allow your triggers to be your guides. They're going to be the things that are going to help you navigate what you need to address. You can't run from them. So if you're using anything to numb them, to detach, to dissociate or anything like that, you're not going to address it. You have to be honest with yourself. I'm always an advocate for therapy. I know not everyone can afford therapy. Whether it's a therapist, a coach, a counselor, anything like that, I know you can afford it. So expressive writing would be something as well. If you're feeling something, if like your body's responding to something and you start writing things out, journaling or things like that, that can help you as well, because then you'll really start pouring what's really going on outside on paper. And if you can see it on paper, then you can develop an actionable plan to help you in the future with navigating it.
And to keep in mind that like those triggers are unconscious, right? And so how can I see in my blind spot if it's blind? So you're totally right? That like not everyone can afford therapy. To plan for it is important, just like we would budget for something that whatever we think is really important. So I just have to note that our behaviors in the present. We said this a while ago, right? That like we're all doing something that we think is the right thing to do, or the best strategy to take. And so the things that are dysfunctional or things that are unconscious, if they were conscious, we would probably in some way try to mitigate that on our own. And so you have to emphasize that with all of the kind of thinking that you might do on your own, all of the journaling you might do on your own, how important it is to have someone that you trust and can work with to help you to see some of these blind spots, because they're blind for a reason.
Amazing. And listen, thank you again, ladies, for coming up on here and spending this time here with the family. So I appreciate you guys again. We are here with Kitty Rose and Taylor Chandler here. And I thank you guys, ladies. You have an amazing night. I appreciate you, okay?
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much. Good night, y'all.
Absolutely. So guys, just so you know, I want to let you guys know here that, please, you all have the opportunity here to get the Hardly in Love dating cards. They actually just launched. I want you guys to go ahead and have them. There are 100 open-ended questions for you to ask with your partner on a date.
Yeah.
Super fun, super exciting. I want each and every one of you guys to go ahead and get your Hardly in Love deck.
The
right
cars
there,
are going crazy. The cars are going crazy. This is the thing, guys. We done worked all of this stuff out. So the cars have officially started to ship. So a lot of y'all are going to get your cars well before you actually expect it. So that's really good. Biggest thing is that we've been getting contacted relentlessly about international shipping. So right now we do not have the capabilities to ship, but by the end of next week we should. But this is the thing, you got to make sure you get these cars as soon as possible, because that first batch of 500 We only got about, I think it's like 180 left.
Yeah.
So we're running out of those. So please go ahead and get these cards before it's too late, and look out for international shipping to be on and popping next week. And of course, I'll announce that on whichever live show it happens first.
I love it. My girl, what is it? Is it Kosher Leotard? She said her cards have been shipped. She got the email. Big shout out to you.
That's what's
excited.
up.
And guys, when you receive those cards, I want y'all to go ahead, take a picture of you actually receiving it, send it over to us at info@harleyinitiated.com so we can go ahead and show a picture of you here on the show with your deck. So big shout out to everybody in here. They got their deck. Matter of fact, if you went ahead and got your deck, put a me in the chat right now. If you already got yours, if you didn't, it's currently in the description. You can press it. You can get it. They are here and ready for you guys. And guys, what I want to let you know, this Sunday, we are going to have an amazing show, guys. This is going to be something different. We've been really being creative to put together some of the most captivating conversations we possibly could. And this Sunday, y'all, we have found 3 amazing ladies with 3 amazing stories, and they all have turned down marriage proposals. So I got 3 young ladies coming to the stage that are going to tell their stories on why they said no to the ring. Okay? So that's going to be a very fun show. All right? This Sunday, and it is going to be an incredible show. Sunday at 5 p.m. Y'all know how we do it. And guys, what an amazing show. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Hardly Initiated. All right. Make sure you subscribe and like this chat. Please, guys, do not leave this joint without subscribing and hitting that like button on this channel. It helps more than you know. But as you guys already know, Hardly Initiated, we are out.